Hi, everyone. This week, we're going to be talking about something that I actually sort of came up with in response to something our friend Charlie had asked us about on Discord. He was looking for research and articles on male sexual jealousy, which made me think about how we could incorporate this into an episode. I came up with the idea for male desire in part because I think the underpinning experience of gay men is yearning. And that's what's going to get covered in the second half of the episode on gay male desire. But Joseph and Charlie have really led the charge with the first half, which is on straight male desire.
Yeah, it just feels like I don't know, a fun, kind of looser, definitely more like culturally based episode as opposed to more like specific ones we've done recently. We get to do a little bit of like, I guess, dating discourse and stuff, wade into that. I don't think we'll be annoying on it or anything, but I think we have some like interesting angles to view it from. And then we have our guest Charlie here. So Charlie's a filmmaker. Yeah. I'll start asking you some questions. So yeah, tell us a bit about like the filmmaking work you do, and then if you want to talk about your day job, you can.
Yeah. So I'm a writer, producer, director, filmmaker, sometimes cinematographer, and photographer as well. So I've made 4 short films now, and I am currently working on what will be my first feature film. So it'll be about hopefully like an hour 20 minutes, an hour 30 minutes maybe. So I'm writing that. I've been writing it for the past few months, since about March. I'm on my 3rd draft, and this is kind of like the best part of the process is when you're not thinking about budget. Yeah. You know, your director producer hat is kind of off, and you're just writing and having fun and exploring concepts. So my previous film was Wings. It came out last year. It's about 28 minutes long. It was about 10 or 15 people total on the crew. I made it my senior year of college, and it's definitely like the biggest thing that I've made so far. There were, visual effects, and we had a asteroid come in from the sky and crash down, and it looked really great. It looked very cinematic, and
that's available on YouTube, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask next.
So we'll link
what
that.
distribution
It is,
things.
So definitely check that out. I think it's really cool. It's kind of like subverting like Marvel movies. That's so kind of pervasive in the culture right now, or at the time it was, because this was 2020, 2021. And it's kind of an exploration of like the psychological realism behind like what would actually happen if like a 16-year-old got superpowers, right? Because like Spider-Man is like this 16-year-old kid, and when he gets superpowers, people expect him to like go and fight crime. But it's really looking at like what would actually happen if a 16-year-old had superpowers. They would probably feel alienated and scared and alone, and so that's kind of what Wings is about.
I like that. I don't know. I think I'd mentioned on the podcast before it wasn't a whole Amazon show. I always liked the Invincible series of comics, because it felt like a very interesting kind of ask on that question of like, oh, what would superheroes actually be like? And then there's, I think the more famous component to that is like the show The Boys. It's like, oh, what if superheroes were evil? And that seems like less nuanced and less interesting to me. But I want to know, like, what was the angle you came at filmmaking from first? Was it from a writing angle or from what?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I got into filmmaking. I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker at a really young age. Like when I was like, 8 or 9, like I knew I wanted to, maybe not a filmmaker, but a storyteller. I've always been a writer. My mom's a writer as well. She's an author. She's written 4 or 5 books now. I was raised to be a creative. I don't think she like wanted to like raise a creative person, but she definitely like really nurtured that part of me. And my parents have always been so supportive of my creative endeavors and my filmmaking and stuff. They've never been like, oh, are you going to get a real job or whatever. I feel like a lot of artistic people kind of have to.
The rite of passage
have
is
to
like
deal with that,
disapproving parents.
Yeah. So they've always been very, very supportive of me. And, when I was a kid, like I remember making like, camcorder movies on like VHS tapes and stuff.
That's always the classic thing they say.
Right,
like, she was always putting on shows for us in the living room. Like, and that kid was Britney Spears. It's always that. Same thing with filmmaking.
Yeah. So then in college, I really kind of dedicated myself to the arts and being a creative. And senior year was when I really like had this moment where I read The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with his work, but basically a book about like comparative theology, talking about the different religions and how all religions and the stories we tell are actually reflections of like the human condition, and every story is kind of saying the same thing about life, and he's the one who drew up the hero's journey thing.
People always use Star Wars, I feel, as like the,
Right.
like a classic explanation of that. But,
Yeah. And so he says like the hero's journey is like real life, and that's, we all kind of go through, you know, this death and crucifixion and rebirth, and it was all very interesting and just really thought provoking, and it kind of just opened my mind to this weird kind of esoteric stuff that I kind of dove into.
Yeah, and then so what kind of like kicked off this episode? You were asking for some reading recommendations on like male sexual like jealousy and desire. I assuming this is related to the upcoming script.
Yeah, definitely. So this upcoming script is about.
You don't want to give away too much, you know?
I know, right?
Yeah, you can do broad strokes though.
It's basically kind of a psychosexual examination of like males and female dynamics and the relationships that we have, the faces we put on, kind of the roles that we give ourselves, and so it takes place all in one place. That's kind of where the idea started. Is I was like, okay, if I'm going to make a feature length film. That's going to cost, you know, a good amount of money, and I'm going to have to pay people. I want to make it all in one place, and also as a challenge to myself, just as a writer.
Capsule episode, as they say, right? Isn't that one of the terms for it? Yeah, where everyone's just, you're locked in the freezer.
Or chamber
for the whole
drama.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or even like a courtroom drama. Like I watched 12 Angry Men as inspiration. I watched that for the first time, and that was an incredible movie. But I really wanted to challenge myself by writing something that takes place all in one location. So as of right now, the film is called The Beach House. So it takes place at a beach house in Lake Michigan, up in Lake Forest, which I have like a few like writing partners that I send scripts to and have them like kind of read through it. And everybody's been like, this isn't a beach house, this is a lake house. It's on Lake Michigan. But I'm like, okay, well, it's on like sand, and it's like you can't see the other side of the lake. So
yeah,
it might as well be.
The viewers won't know it's freshwater.
And also the lake house just doesn't have the same ring as the beach house.
I don't know. I think the lake house might have it. I don't know. I've just been very like, the idea of the lake house is something that was very new to me when I came to the Midwest. The fact that like middle class families in Minnesota will have, or Wisconsin will have like a lake house. Like just in Las Vegas, there's no houses on Lake Mead. It's just not a thing. So I was very blown away by that. No, I think there's a vein there. Like don't run away from it being in the Great Lakes. That's fine.
One more strike for
I will
the
need
lake
writing
house.
credit, but still. It's okay.
Yeah. So it's based on the film La Piscine. If you're familiar with that movie, it's a French movie.
I've only seen the stills from it. Everyone's looking very
it's always
French
on the mood
and beautiful.
boards.
Yeah.
It's always on the mood boards. So it's kind of a modern kind of retelling of that story. I kind of just took the situation of that story of like these three or four people with different history among them, stuck in a sort of beautiful vacation house with, you know, the sun shining and very tan people and cool music. It's kind of a no plot, just vibes movie. I've always been interested in making a movie like that, where it's kind of just a slice of life type hangout movie where nothing is necessarily like happening, but everything is happening all at once. It's funny because like as I'm plotting this movie and as I'm writing this movie, I've been writing with like index cards. That's how I kind of brainstorm and reorganize scenes. Maybe this one should happen in the beginning or in the third act and whatnot. And it's funny because like as a film that's no plot, just vibes, this sure is like a lot of
storyboarding
happening.
No, that makes sense.
But I think that's how those movies work, right? Like it seems like very kind of subtle and not much is happening, but a lot of stuff actually is happening under the surface.
I think you'd like Garden of Eden by Ernest Hemingway. It is not often thought of when it comes to his works because it was a posthumous one and the editing process was a little sketchy. They like left a lot on the cutting room floor. But it's about a couple that kind of overstays their honeymoon and they kind of have a folie à deux, like kind of the vacation goes off the rails in a little bit. Basically, the wife in their relationship wants them to get closer and closer together by dyeing their hair, wearing the same clothes. Like she cuts her hair short, and they introduce another woman to the relationship. It's very like it was very racy for its times. We really wanted to like hold off on releasing it, but I don't know. I've always found the idea of the vacation gone wrong to be very interesting. I enjoyed Infinity Pool by Cronenberg the Younger. That one, I forget his name, but yeah,
I loved Infinity Pool. I thought that was Such a good movie.
I want to go to Croatia now. That was like filmed with like the film board of Croatia, like made that happen.
Oh, really?
And I was like, did they read the whole script? Like, did they know the body horror that was going to happen in their beautiful country? Should we get into it?
Yeah, we can get into it, but I'm not the one to lead the straight male desire section.
You're right. That's us. So yeah, I guess the first like thing to address is, I think we're coming off of a period of just straight denigration of the straight male gaze, which is fair. I gotta say that's fair, considering it's all been very male gazy for the past 600 years or so of media. But I think I'm hoping for this kind of like a nuanced view of how men see women, and that it's not all just like objectification, but there is like, in its best cases, it is something beautiful and worth like talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like a good example, which honestly you can actually frame this as being horribly bad because both of these guys are pervs, but okay, Terry Richardson and Dub Charney, the way they present women in their photography is actually a lot less like sort of exaggerated. Like, for example, Dub Charney doesn't like women even wearing makeup. It's so much more natural in a way than what you see in the fashion industry, which I've seen construed as being dominated by like gay men and women, and they're pushing the extremes of like what women can look like. Yeah. And I think there is something simpler to the male gaze that is a bit less unrealistic. It's more realistic.
Yeah. I've always heard that like when they design bots to like try and catch guys and scam them, like the first wave of bots were just like buxom, blonde, like just like voluptuously shaped, like exaggeratedly hot women. But then the next wave of bots was going for more of a girl next door, hot but doesn't know it kind of thing. And that is much better at ensnaring men. Like when you hear, if you ask men what they like, they will like say these things, oh, like I want a girl who knows a bit about cars and like isn't too high maintenance. And you're like, oh, men don't actually want that. No, listen to men. Sometimes they actually are like saying something.
Speaking of bots, I recently reactivated Facebook, and it's insane, like the AI stuff that's on there right now that people are just like believing. And for some reason, Facebook keeps putting on my feed like these AI images of like Gal Gadot or something, just like with an insanely unproportionate body, like very like kind of like soft core, like pornography, just online
kind of stuff.
I thought they're coding feed. AI though in a way where like you can't represent real people after the like insane Taylor Swift Rule 34 images came out. 34.
So it wasn't the Pope in the puffer jacket? That wasn't what did it for them?
No.
Did you ever see that?
I did see that. That was the first time I was tricked by AI.
Same.
Yeah. It's a Chicago creation. It's this like just a guy who's like an electrician in Chicago, and he said he took too much acid, and he thought about the idea, and then he made it and he shared it. Which I don't know. They say nothing's made in Chicago anymore, but how about AI images?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that the straight male gaze is seen as just like it's not as like beautiful and multifaceted and complex as like the gay male gaze. Not in like everyday culture. Obviously straight people are still like the dominant norm for everything. But it feels like in art, it's very boring to make a straight romance, but it's very cool and like of the moment to make a gay romance.
Yeah. And that's something I'm thinking about with this film, because it is just about like straight kind of rich white people. And so, I've really been thinking like, how do I make this interesting, and how do I subvert kind of the expectations of what that's like? And I think having a film about three straight kind of rich white people is actually really a good conversation about like everything else, like about race and about class.
It's also good. You don't want to like retread. I don't know. I saw like Knives Out and I was like, oh, that was a great movie besides that weird, like whenever he tried to address like race and class, I was like, that felt a little heavy handed. It felt like he wasn't as good as his writing about like mysteries and stuff. Yeah. And I saw Glass Onion and it was just all that, the worst part of it. It was like all just like Rian Johnson's like class commentary and stuff. So I think you might be doing the right thing by like being more oblique about referencing things that are kind of like not on the screen.
Yeah. Because there's nothing worse than like white people preaching about race.
Suck.
And of course it's like, as a straight white man, like I do have a privilege in my voice. But I also think, I just don't want to preach to people, because like, what do I have to say about like being a person of color or going through those experiences? So what I can provide is critiquing critiquing white people.
Here you go. It's a time-honored tradition. I always say, like, Jews, I'm Jewish, like, they're like, we're especially good at that. Like, because we're inside with white people, we have like a little twist on it, and so we're able to like step outside of it.
White on white crime.
Exactly.
But yeah, on gay relationships and the gay male gaze being celebrated by Hollywood, I feel like part of it is just that, like, the Oscars, the Academy, I feel like they like films like that in part because they consider it more impressive for a straight actor to play a gay character and make it convincing. It can't be easy, I'm sure.
People
to,
love a
kiss
transformative
people on
role.
screen that you're not like into them. So it must be hard. But another thing too is I think that like the films that are considered the best films that get the most Oscars, they're usually the ones that are the most acting heavy. Like I found this chart from 2018 that shows the makeup of the Academy, you know, that selected the best films for that year. And like the actors were the biggest group, and they beat the second biggest category by like double, which were like short film and animators.
Yeah, no, very actor heavy. I was just reading some random quote by Cary Grant, the old like golden age Hollywood actor, and he was talking about how like it's very strange that people take the Academy Awards so seriously, because when it started, it was just like me and my buddies having a party for ourselves and then kind of like teasing each other lightly. Like it was kind of roast formatting in the first like iterations of it. And he said like the real joke here, like in the Academy Awards, is that like you just made $10 million off of a movie, but hey, here's your gold medal. I'm sure you really want that. It's like, no, I already made $10 million. Yeah. Like that's the reward in itself. And it's crazy that we like, I don't know, it is seen as such like a meaningful prize nowadays, because we like ascribe meaning to it.
Denzel Washington was talking about, he was giving advice to some actor, and he said like the Oscars don't matter, but make them matter with how good you are at acting. It just seems like all the best actors don't really care about the Oscars.
Yeah, no. It'd be very not cool to care about the Oscars if you were like actively angling for it. It's one of those things you have to be like coy about it. Like when it was building up with Leonardo DiCaprio like not having an Oscar, he was at no point allowed to be like, yeah, no, I think I should have an Oscar too. I think it's kind of crazy. Like you have to be, no, you know, it's whatever. I love the projects I've been able to be a part of.
You know, he wanted that. He wanted that Oscar.
Yeah. I also don't like though whenever like people are like, this person like deserves it, and I'm so glad that they finally got one. Like when Leonardo DiCaprio finally won one, I remember like seeing things on Instagram, like people being like, yeah, I'm so happy for him. I know he wanted this so much. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't know him. I can't imagine being that invested in celebrities.
Yeah, it's a jump I can't always make. I cannot like put myself in their mind there.
So Nathan, I'm curious what you think about like gay films, and what do you think is the best example of a gay film done right?
Well, I think that one that like really represents the gay experience is called Take Me to the River. Odds are you haven't seen it. It's not very popular, but it depicts this like very awkward young kid at like a family reunion who's just like rebelling against like everything that's like, you know, normal and straight. And he's just like being really rude. And he shows up to the family reunion wearing like head to toe American Apparel in a way that doesn't even look good, like sort of like how I dressed when I was younger. It has a bizarre plot that most people won't like, because basically in the film, there's like family drama, like really bad blood. And his mom's brother has his daughter accuse the gay kid of like touching her. And like the whole film from then on out is like the gay kid kind of wanting to like express the truth of him being gay to like the whole family, because that would absolve him of any accusation. But his mom keeps telling him not to. And it's basically about how like for gay youths, I feel like as a gay adult, I can see how the straight world works a little bit easier, but there's so much lying and there's so much like sort of performance, which we're going to get into later. And like, yeah, when your identity is just based around telling people the truth about who you are, and then the world around you is about people lying left and right and hiding their authentic selves, it's like, it's not really compatible, and it's very, very difficult. But yeah, I don't actually watch many gay films. I should watch more romance ones. I actually had a bad date once where someone told me after the date that I should go watch more romance films to figure out how things worked.
Oh my God, that is so mean. Who are these?
Yeah, I haven't really watched many since. Like I've never seen Brokeback Mountain, which I think you wrote about in the docket as being a good example of a gay film.
Yeah. definitely. Have you seen Brokeback
Yeah.
Mountain before?
It's a good one.
I just think I mean, I
Nice.
think Brokeback Mountain is really accessible as well as a film. Like, I think like you can show it to like your like 45-year-old mom, and I think it really is like very powerful. And
Yeah, I've seen my dad watching it, and I think he might have asked to watch it with me at some point or something, but I didn't. I still haven't seen it. I've seen clips though. Like I've for sure seen part of it.
That's kind of nice on your dad's part. Was that him like trying to make an inroad with you of like, you can watch a gay movie? Like,
He's done that before. But no, actually, now that I think about it, I know the ending. I feel like maybe I just haven't seen the beginning. That could be it. But yeah, it's hard to not like cowboys. They just look really good.
Cowboys too. I mean, the ending is my favorite part, and what's great about Brokeback Mountain is like how much visual storytelling is in there, and the end shot is, you know, Heath Ledger closing this photo of Jake Gyllenhaal in his closet, and then it fades to black, and so it's like he's literally stuck in the closet for the rest of his life. And yeah, really great ending. That's like one of those shots that you just like wish you could have come up with.
Like, it's like, oh, I can't just do it again. Like, I can't just steal it. Or you can, and then it's actually very cool, and it's a reference, and it's like a tasteful pastiche.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just a factoid, not actually important, but a lot of the sheep are CGI in Brokeback Mountain.
Really?
Yeah, it's very expensive to get that many sheep, and they're hard to move around, so they
I once read this like quote from an interview with a director, who said like the biggest film mistake he'd ever made was trying to have a goat in a film, because they're always just going around in circles, and they can't really be like domesticated in a way where they can get commands to do things.
Oh man!
And I bet sheep are the same. I mean, goats and sheep are like
very
almost
ornery,
the same.
Barn animals. Yeah, that's the one rule about filmmaking that I've been told is don't work with kids and don't work with animals.
Yeah, no kids, no
Kind of
animals.
like the
Unpredictable.
golden advice that's given to everybody. But that was for The Witch. That was the director of The Witch talking about that.
Oh, Eggers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
That black goat.
Yeah, we need to get back to this straight male desire stuff.
Oh yeah, of course. But yeah, I just think that if we are going to rehabilitate like the male gaze and male desire, I think there's stuff that men appreciate that like women can be hard on themselves for. But I think men are a lot more like forgiving than people give them credit for. I think I remember during the ick discourse that people say, of course, which I don't know, I feel so lame bringing this up, but someone say that like men never get the ick because they never let the reality of you get in the way of their image of you. And I think that is like, it's a fair dig at men. It's also, I think, a compliment in some ways that like, we're very like, I think we can be very invested in the idea of someone sometimes to the detriment of their reality. Yeah. But like, I think it keeps men going. It keeps men loving when things like become more difficult. I think that's like I don't know, men are hopeful in the way they love. Yeah.
I've found that men are more likely to be hopeless romantic than women are, interestingly enough. I think one of the reasons some men get like so upset with women and have this bad relationship with women is they make up this idea about who that woman is in their head, and men kind of just like lie to themselves maybe about who they're dating or who they're seeing, and when that person isn't this, you know, whatever they drew up in their head, they get like
that disconnect. But yeah, I guess you should say as a blanket statement, whenever we say men and women, we mean asterisk on each one, and it means most and entirely in our opinion. We're going to be painting with broad strokes, of course, here, and there's like going to be tons of exceptions to everything. This is just, in my experience, your mileage may vary kind of blanket statement.
And most of the stuff I'm going to talk about with men here are like the worst kind of men, not every day.
Yeah, of course. But there's so little information you can glean if you start to like question the validity of generalizations. You know, you can get down to Descartes 101 and just like question even if you even exist. It's like all knowledge can be deconstructed and it's not useful. You know,
we develop some like shorthand schemas and we can use them and they're useful and it's like, I don't know, it works.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I actually didn't know how much straight people think about gender until I started listening to podcasts. This is something I've tried to articulate to straight people before, and they get upset sometimes because me as a gay man, honestly, like I don't think about like power dynamics with men and women, and I don't notice them. Like women are my friends, guys are attractive. There's not much beyond that. I think about the difference between straight and gay people all the time, but I don't have the lens. It's not new. It's new to me. I do think though that like, you know, it can be treated as a social fact. Have you ever heard that term? It's when a society considers something that's abstract or not even real to be real to the degree that you might as well treat it as it's real. So even if like, gender isn't ingrained in our biology, men and women act in a way like things aren't like they aren't mutable. And like, it's like I gotta take their word for it. And I'm taking your word for it now. It's like there are important things I can glean from this conversation we're gonna have today.
I think of a good example of like a social fact, like outside of the topic of discussion, meaning like men and women. But I'm guessing like something like the DMV takes a lot of time. This is just an acknowledgement. Like everyone's like, you know how it is with the DMV? It takes a lot of time. And like, even if a city or a state got extremely good at running their DMV and made a very short thing, that wouldn't really change the social fact that DMV takes a lot of time. It's just like a commonly held truth, I guess, in that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think of it as being more abstract. The example I had read about that had used that term was actually about like witches in Colombia, something like that, and witchcraft may or may not be real, but it's treated in the culture like it is. And
so it might as
you
well
should grant it like that level. It's serious, know?
Yeah, I remember watching like a Vice documentary about it's not voodoo, but the like magic chieftains who people go to for good luck. And the good luck they want is with pulling off online scams, basically. And there's this one guy who's very against this whole witchcraft thing, but he's not like, oh, it doesn't work. He's like, oh, it works. We just shouldn't be using this for online scams, like this, this powerful arcane thing. So I guess in that case, the idea is everyone agrees that witchcraft exists. It works. It's like a powerful thing. But the question is just like witchcraft control, basically, like gun control, kind of like we shouldn't use it for this end. So yeah, after talking about like the kind of positive angle of straight male desire, I think we do like have to pay service to like all the negative aspects of it. And the one that kind of started off this whole conversation in general, which is possessiveness and jealousy. Yeah. But I think it's maybe the key driver of like the worst things that men do is out of jealousy and possessiveness and like this objectification. And the next step after objectification is ownership. But I have also like heard from women that like, if a man has absolutely no possessiveness, that makes you feel taken for granted, basically. Like, not that a man should be living in fear that you're going to cheat on him because you're such a hot commodity or something, but like, you want to see that little like flash in his eye where he's like, I care for you, I protect you, like what happens to you matters to me, that kind of thing. And so if he's just too blasé about it, like, all right, see you, have fun with the girls, like that can kind of feel like you don't matter, like you're a pet coming and going.
Yeah. And I think that's something I've ran into in like past relationships where I kind of want to like play it cool. And I think a lot of straight men kind of do this.
Yeah,
where
you can't show too much interest.
Right, can't text back too fast, like don't want to be whatever. And then you kind of get to the point where like you're just kind of like apathetic and the woman loses interest.
Yeah, it's like war of attrition kind of thing. You're both trying to show how chill and cool and not like interested you are, and then it entirely dies. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that like you have to, of course, like read the situation like that. But I think that like one of the better ways to go about that is to show through actions like how serious you are, but then don't talk about it too much. Like do little things that signal that like I care about this, I'm invested in this. Through actions.
And those were kind of like 17, 18-year-old feelings. And now like as an adult, like, I mean, I've been in a relationship for 5.5 years now. So I've been out of the dating game, but I feel like as an adult now, like maybe people are a little bit more just like transparent and less, there's less games going on. Maybe.
I've heard it as like a pretty like smooth gradient where it's just like the most games, the younger you are, and then people have less and less. And then it almost kind of like what I've heard about dating in your 30s is that there's even just no pretension about it. It's like, all right, what do you want? Like, everything's just really, hey, listen, time's limited here. Like, what's your likes and dislikes? Like, how do we fit together? And all that. Which I think that's a little bit of a bummer because I think the fun is like, unfolding.
The chase. The chase is definitely like very fun.
Of course.
And yeah, it's interesting because I've been out of the game for 5.5 years now. And, I hear all these horror stories right now about the dating scene and Hinge and the swipes and, Anna and I were talking about like we feel like we got on the last chopper out of Vietnam, because we started dating in 2019. So
I've heard that sentiment from people too. There's like, oh, I wouldn't want to be in it right now. It's like I was single like for a long bit, like 5-6 years ago or something. It was great, it was cool, and then like I would not want to do it again now. I always say like I think I serve a purpose to my friends who are in relationships where I can like report from the front lines. Yeah, basically. But yeah, it's like people want to know. People are always curious. I think I was saying somewhere in the docket that single young men are viewed with like bemusement and then skepticism. as well.
Mhm.
It's just like, oh, a single guy. So you're just out there going on dates? And it's like, so you're just out there going on dates? Like there's like,
Yeah.
like a bit of concern because like no one's vouching for you. I think that like, I don't know, as male dominated society and power structures can be, we do like lend a lot of credence to the vote of a woman essentially
Yeah.
on someone's character. Like,
Definitely.
I do think women are better judges of character kind of naturally. I think men can get distracted. I don't know. Like, I think it's a joke of like, oh yeah, that's like Big Steve. He's kind of like a terrible person and all that, but we keep him around. We hang out with him. Like,
Yeah.
It's just like men will like overlook that stuff. But I think women can be appropriately picky.
Yeah.
There is social capital in having a partner and being in a relationship. Like you say, having somebody who vouches for you. Like this guy isn't a psycho because he can talk to a girl and a girl will talk back to him and hang out with him.
Even in gay relationships too, which I'll get to later, but it's a huge status symbol. But on male jealousy, I think part of the reason too that like straight men can get so jealous is partly because they can't look at people who may or may not be an interest of the woman that they're interested in. And the guy that they're looking at, they're comparing it to them. And we're not trained in society to view men as being beautiful. And like guys just don't look at each other and they can't see like,
what does she see in him?
I
Like
know.
that kind of phrase. Like does that phrase not like appear naturally in gay dating? Because like they know what he sees in him because they see it too.
yeah. And I mean, usually in gay relationships, I'll get to this later too, but you know, gay couples often, they look a little similar. It's for a reason. It's because they try to look like what they're into. And then that's why they end up looking the same.
Yeah.
So.
But I think that's kind of fair. I think that's like,
Yeah.
you want to be attracted to yourself.
But yeah, I can't really know what it's like, but I can tell how pissed off it makes like guys when they compare each other, when they compare themselves to other men. It's like, I don't really compare myself to anyone. I don't know who to do it to, but yeah, I can tell it makes them really angry.
In the worst thralls of like male sexual jealousy, the woman seems kind of like irrelevant to it. It's just about like, it's about men, and then there's just like a woman being like volleyballed around in the course of it. And so that's like, I think that, in the worst cases of male desire, that female becomes just secondary, like just an object to like get an upper hand on other men. Like that's the ugliest side of it.
Yeah. And I think there is like a primal fear that all men have of getting cucked or something like that, where like, I wonder why that is. Like, because it seems like men do have a very big fear that the woman they're seeing is constantly sleeping with other men or something like that.
I've heard a very like biological explanation of this, and I don't like to be too like pop environmental or evolutionary biologist, but people always say like, oh, men fear physical infidelity, and then women fear like
Emotional infidelity.
Yes, emotional infidelity, like alienation or responsibility is like the man not caring and not doing that. And so they'll forgive the physical infidelity, not the other one. But I don't know. You can just note that in people, but like the origins of that are so like nebulous. Like who knows?
I mean, ultimately, I think it's just about pride. And I think men are very prideful creatures.
Yeah.
I mean, there's even competition within women too, like maybe similarly in the same way it is with males. But I think that there kind of is like, it's funny because like I know, I have some girlfriends and I know their friend groups and whatnot, but a lot of like girl friend groups, everybody like secretly hates each other. And it really like confuses me because I'm like, all of you have come up to me at one point talking shit about the other person.
Yeah,
but
this is what I've observed. This almost feels like the fact that I agree with that is kind of the opposite of what I was saying earlier about how women are like better judges of character and men tolerate too much. But I have seen the exact thing you're talking about where it's just like everyone hates Becky. Becky is still in the friend group, like, that kind of thing. I don't know. I always hear this about women that like it's just so, it's hard to see women tear each other down. They do feel like they're more in competition. Like, that idea that women will give each other intentionally bad fashion advice to sabotage each other. I almost kind of admire that like brazenness and that kind of subterfuge. I think that's like, I respect it like a
Or even
spy.
at their own weddings when they'll like want the bridesmaids to look ugly.
Yeah, that is like
and you're taking pictures with them. It's like, why would you not want them
You
to
don't
look
want them
good?
hideous. You just don't want them overstepping. You know?
I don't know. I don't feel, I don't, It's like, how confident can they be? I mean, if they're all straight, okay, like how confident can they be that woman's more beautiful than them? Maybe that's why it also drives them crazy too. It's like you guys always have to second guess if like people of the same gender are attractive or not, because like you don't really know.
Yeah, there's like this. You don't know how the ranking is. There's this uncertainty kind of breeds like a Mexican standoff situation where everyone's just like guns pointed at, like, all right, who's hotter than me? Like, I think it's also in terms of like women giving each other fashion advice. I don't know if this is a real thing, but I feel like sometimes a naturally beautiful, just like woman who has a real like presence about her, will do a like objectively bad fashion move, kind of as a flex. I think it's like, yeah, I can do this and I'm still hot. Like, I think that's like another level of like women flexing on each other. I don't think men flex on each other in that like well thought out and subtle kind of ways.
I mean, I think it might not be intentional, but the like 70s queerbaiter look is sort of like that, I think, in a way. But also the look, I realized recently that it also masks asymmetry. When your hair is like all over the place, you don't notice the asymmetry in their face as much.
Are you familiar, Charlie, with this term 70s queerbaiter to describe male fashion?
No.
Yeah, so we gleaned this from Nymphet alumni, and this is like guys you'll see who have like a Frank Zappa type like mustache, like a porn stash, and they'll have a mullet sometimes, or just like long hair, like tight pants, could be leather, could be ripped jeans, and then like a tight top. It's like, it's a little bit gay, but they're clearly like a straight guy or maybe like a bi guy. But yeah, this is like the dominant life form in Logan Square.
Men are dressing gayer now.
Yeah.
Straight men.
Yes.
They're more comfortable with, I think as a whole, straight men are starting to get more comfortable and welcoming of fashion in general. And it wasn't always like that. And I still don't understand why a lot of men like really do not care about what they look like or the clothes that they wear.
The casualification of everything. This is, we touch on this maybe the most in our like kind of fashion episodes, but I'm always trying to pin down what time it was. And I really think it was like, you can't put 9/11 on everything, but in the 90s, like there's definitely like a sharpness to people that is just not present in the 2000s. I don't know. The 90s still had sweatpants. People just wore them to the gym. Like they had all the tools. They weren't using them in the ways that we use them in the 2000s, I would say. They had stretch fabrics. They had like performance stuff. But yeah, I'm often like yearning for this period where men were allowed to like express themselves with clothes and with care and with grooming, and you wouldn't be accused of being metrosexual.
Yeah.
Like that was just part of being a good man. And yeah, I think it died in the 2000s. And then if you cared, you were metrosexual. And then things maybe lightly improved, but not through a great way. Like I think of the bygone website Art of Manliness, where they'd have like two like 1880s pugilists at the top of it. Like it was very like twee 2010s hipster kind of stuff. But they'd have like, it's super manly to tie a tie. And I'm like, why do we have to couch it in this language? Like, like why do it like, we can't just be like, oh, it's just a part of being a man. It's like, no, it's manly. And it's actually very cool. It's just seemed like so many like logically eating its own tail.
I mean, I think part of the reason though that men don't think about how they look and put effort into their fashion is because like the way men are represented in media, especially compared to women, it's like they're presented as being like inherently uglier. Like if you think about iconic couples like Homer and Marge or Peter and Lois, and there's plenty of other examples, it's just like the gap between how the two genders are represented is like one is literally like a slob, and it's like, you know, what hope do you have? It's like, and then men are taught to like never compliment each other too. I think that's part of it. They're not taught to like see any beauty in people who are the same gender as them.
Until of course we invented gassing up your homies, and then that fixed everything, I would say.
I mean, you've always been able to compliment people's clothes, but you can't be like, oh yeah, that friend of mine, he's handsome.
I don't know. I want to think that it's gonna be a great period of like, I think ever since Saturday Was for the Boys, I think we're in a male friendship era.
There's definitely some like camaraderie being more normalized in male friend groups, I think, of like, you know, he dapped me up and it felt like a kiss. You know, like
that's so good. Is that it is like it's a reference to the song "He Hit Me and It Felt Like a Kiss." Do you know that?
Yeah,
man, that's a good one.
I love Lana.
Oh, she did a cover of that. I was thinking of the Grizzly Bear cover of that, but it's originally a what's his name, Spector, Phil Spector, the music producer and songwriter turned murderer. That guy. If you want to talk about the horrifying male gaze, that guy. Yeah, do some reading Phil Spector.
Okay.
Crazy stuff. But yeah, and they always point to songs like that. He Hit Me and It Felt Like a Kiss. So just like, yeah, that's a murderous song. That's the kind of song a murderer would write. But no, unlike, as much as I do like, dressing up and all that stuff, it is that kind of contrast between men and women in the ways that we dress up, I find to be like very, very hot and very cool. That like a man dressed to his best, all you can see is his head and his hands, and everything else is just covered in layers of cotton and wool, basically in a suit. And then for women, like they're just in like a beautiful slip of a dress, like showing off back or what have you, and arms. It's like such a jarring difference. It just feels like women's clothing is so sculptural, and then men is like a suit of armor, basically. Yeah. It's a suit of armor guarding like an exotic bird.
Yeah, the clothes are wearing them. Yeah. Rather than them wearing the clothes.
No. And I would always choose I can't even imagine how women choose an outfit. Because things are so different. They're all like cut and built differently. Yeah. And it's much nicer to choose small details to modulate, like the color of your suit and the like color of your shirt. Yeah. I think it's a lot less to work with, and there's a lot more space in there.
I'm always so jealous of the women's section in like clothing stores, just because of how many options they have, and just like, different patterns and different silhouettes of clothes. And then men are just like shorts, shirt, pants.
Yeah, I'm like kind of the opposite mind, but when it comes to suiting, I just like that it's like, all right, choose a solid suit, now choose a fun pattern for the tie. Like you get to choose one pattern, choose wisely, and it's not like you have all these stacking things to each. Like, all right, well, what purse then? Like what?
Yeah, a lot of a lot more layering for women.
Yeah, I mean, even when I worked at American Apparel, I would like look at the women's section and be like, if I was a girl, I would get that.
Well, I did that too, like growing up, and as a straight man who does care about like fashion and dressing, I felt like I was never able to beat the gay allegations growing up, because like from a very young age, like I did care about like looking cool and like having cool jeans, or like I remember Shaun White had a line at Target, the snowboarder,
amazing,
and like I wanted all that, but I think there is something, I guess, masculine that men think is masculine about not trying. Yeah. So I think that's why a lot of guys just like don't really care. They're wearing like bootcut jeans with like sneakers.
Yeah. I do kind of get like, I think the best feedback I've had on the looks I put together is that it is too pulled together, and I need to be a little bit like, don't care. I remember like, I mean, every man remembers every compliment they ever get. People say that like we get them so rarely that we remember them. But I remember like getting complimented at the farmer's market. And it was like one of the few times I hadn't tucked in like my dress shirt. I was just like very loosely wearing like a cotton kind of like casual work shirt and some pants and like boat shoes. And like I got a compliment on that. And I'm like, yeah, I gotta chill out. Like I gotta stop tucking in everything, like product in the hair and all that. It can look too like pulled together. I mean, even in like the kind of menswear communities, I guess I tangentially run in, there's always a talk of sprezzatura, the kind of like natural, unstudied style. And I just always assumed I can't do that. Like I'm just too like, I don't know, Northern European in nature to do any of that Italian stuff. Like, no, I'm very cool, and like I have one button of my shirt unbuttoned and all that. Like asymmetry and like louche casualness. I don't think I'm built for it.
I feel like you often do have a button or two unbuttoned, though.
I was talking about something that people will do is they'll wear a button-down collar and then unbutton that, which I'll do sometimes, but I don't know.
You're thinking about this a lot.
But exactly, and then you can't, and you've lost it. You've lost the sprezzatura. It's like don't think about elephants kind of thing. Like don't think about sprezzatura.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in the women I've dated, how they always try and get a read on male desire. They always like, hit you with questions of, do you find her hot? Do you find her hot? Usually celebrities. And it's like a pretty innocuous thing. Or it should be an innocuous thing. She shouldn't be trying to interrogate you. But it's, I don't know. You can always like play into that game a little bit more and like say, yes, I do think Florence Pugh is hot. Or what have you. Or you can play it safe and just say like, you're the only one for me, babe. Like do that. Right. But I don't know. I don't think that most men like over intellectualize their desire, but I think men do whatever like the hottest conceivable woman is to a man. They really want like just a few notches kind of below that. They don't want to be like fully intimidated by like a stunningly hot model woman.
I saw a very good reel. I keep saying that. Okay. I saw a very good reel about this recently where basically like if your date isn't nervous the first time you meet them, you're not hot.
If they're too comfortable.
I've had this experience recently where like when I've met gay guys in like a friend context, which I honestly haven't done much. I don't have many gay friends. But when I have, I'm like actually fun. And I'm like making them laugh and I'm smiling and like, I would never act that way on a date. Like, and I'm learning that I need to, I'm learning that I should.
Yeah, man.
But no, I usually go on dates with guys who are very attractive and I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I get like very shy. So.
No, I mean, like, good
Stakes are
on you
higher.
for getting these dates. But I don't know. I remember talking to a gay guy, and he was talking about that. He was talking about like someone that we both knew that he was like, oh, we actually like went on some dates and hooked up, but he's like way out of my league, so it's just way too much. And I'm like, fascinating. Like, I don't know. I think like straight guys would have like, well, what's the problem?
Right.
Like she's hot and she chose you. Like you're kind of like job done. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I, we watch a lot of reality TV, which I actually really enjoy. And I think the reason is because like when I watch films, I just can't help but analyze them, right? And like it's kind of like laborious to watch films sometimes. 'Cause I'm like just looking at the editing and the color grading, and I'm like, why did they make that cut there? Yeah. So reality TV is like something that I've particularly grown to love over the past few years. So we watch a lot of like Bachelor and Love Island, and we're always like just commenting on the people on there, like if we think they're hot or not. And I think the reason that is because Anne and I kind of accept that recognizing beauty and attractiveness is just part of being a human. We never comment on like actual people, like we it's exclusively like celebrities. But I mean, being attracted to somebody or like finding somebody beautiful it's just part of life. I don't think there's anything threatening by saying that. Granted, like Anna's tastes are like Mark Ruffalo now.
Mark Ruffalo now.
Not like 90s
Mark Ruffalo in 10 years.
Yeah. So her tastes are funny, but yeah, I've never felt threatened by her calling like people on TV hot. And I think it's healthy too. Yeah. I think it's healthy to say stuff like that. Maybe you won't have a desire to look at people in real life.
It's like, I don't know, it's good to have a pair of aesthetes, like two people who care about how things look, not that people should be treated like art in that way of like, that is a beautiful person, let's stare at them. Like, but it's just nice that someone like is still, I don't know, has an appreciation
but
for
also
beauty.
If you're asking people impossible questions where they know that you must have attraction to other people other than at least a little bit, but they'll get angry if you say anything other than, no, I never have eyes for anyone other than you. They're putting you in an impossible situation, which is going to condition you to lie in other situations. It's not good.
Yeah. It's like a logical headlock. I don't know. Like on reality TV, like the type of women that are also like on reality TV, it's such like or being asked like watching that with an actress, like, do you find her hot? And it's like, yes, but who cares? Like that type of person, like the influencer type, the like person who's on reality TV, like, yes, they've done everything correctly. Like that is a beautiful woman, but like it's like you don't want to see how the sausage is made kind of thing. Like what it goes into being like to someone who's actively molding themselves into like the most likable, ideal, objectively hot, America agrees they're hot type of thing is like, that sounds pretty exhausting to be around. Yeah. Like tons of respect for models, those who do it, but it's just from the models I've met, I'm just like, this is a full-time job. Like this is like from what they eat and taking care of their, like, if your body is your instrument in that way, like that just requires a level of, I don't know, maintenance all the time. It sounds exhausting.
I have a lot of respect for models. It's weird. It's always been weird to me how people are like model equals like dumb, like bimbo or something like that, because models are kind of like athletes. Like they, like you said, like your body is your instrument. And so, I know from the models that I know, like they really do like take care of themselves, and they have to, and this goes into, bad eating conditions that the industry has put on people, right? Like eating disorders and stuff. But I also know, like Anna, like some night on Friday night she had French fries for dinner, and then on other nights she eats like a Rottweiler.
Yeah, Rottweiler. That's so good.
She might listen to this. She might not want to pay $2, but
she's gonna be like, "Yeah, I did pound those." That's fair, respect.
Yeah. So women's eating habits are so interesting to me as well, because I
think that's always just a very funny like juxtaposition. We were like talking about this in the docket, and Nathan was like, oh, like, do you want like a girl to like keep up with what you eat? And I'm like, listen, most men cannot keep up with what I eat. Like, I don't expect that of a woman, but like, a girl who will come to a meal and not get something and just pick off your plate. Like, come on, man. Get an entree. Like, at least make an effort, a good try.
Yeah, because for me, I've never had a relationship where the guy I was with matched my eating habits. And oftentimes I find their eating habits bizarre. And I kind of don't, I think a lot of people are probably compromising. I don't think it's probably common for people to be like, yeah, I eat, the same amount of meals per day and I eat all the same foods. It's like, it has to be different.
Yeah, that's such an interesting, like, you think about the stuff you have to kind of, I always call this the nuts and bolts of a relationship, which is like the living together, the coordinating your life together, the kind of like logistics of it, the less romantic part. And food is so important for things. Like, it's tricky with like dietary restrictions, but also just like preferences. It's funny how well you can get to know someone else's like food tastes. Like, I think you always notice that like in older couples, like, oh, he can't eat that. How they like speak for each other, just like, oh, he wouldn't like that. Like, they just know the ins and outs of that. I think I even noticed that in my friends. Like, after knowing someone long enough, I remember like trying to pick an appetizer with a friend. And I was like, oh, there's a salmon thing, but oh yeah, you had that bad experience with salmon from Trader Joe's a few months back. I was like, why do I know that? Like, why are we so in tune with each other?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Even with you, I feel like, I have very difficult eating and drinking habits. And, for example, you'll be like, oh yeah, Nathan only drinks water, but you say it in like a nice way.
Yeah.
You're not critical of it. And I mean, I have had people be like, oh yeah, you should drink alcohol right now for the first time in your life, tonight, because I'm telling you. And it's like, what do you think is going to be different, now that I'm like 28 and I'm here with you? Like, no, I've already made this decision a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I was
thank
just
you
saying,
for being nice.
Yeah. I was also jokingly saying it'd be funny to see you have a non-alcoholic beer. I don't know. I just can't really picture you like can of beer in a hand. It's even hard to picture with a seltzer in hand.
I know. Yeah. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why I guess I consider myself to be a man. I am, but I also feel like I'm a boy when I talk sometimes. I feel like it's a child speaking. I feel like I'm a responsible person, but I also am an adult, and I feel like I am a kid who's acting like an adult. I feel like that's how a lot of people probably feel, which I hate to say because I don't have imposter syndrome. I don't have other things going on, but my relationship with my gender is healthy. It's fine, but I do also have some things psychologically that I feel like, like why do I not feel fully like an adult man? Like, I don't know what it is, but probably it's stuff like that. I just exclude myself from like greater society intentionally. It adds up.
I always say like, if you're going to choose to like abstain from something and cut it out, like it's not just a gain. Like, there's always going to be some minuses, and like you kind of have to like take them as they come, I would say. But yeah. Do you not like sparkling water at all?
Yeah, I'll have it, sure.
I don't know. I think that would be like one little like, it's not even acquiescing because it's not you trying any substances, but I think like it's just tricky to go to a place where you can't have like anything, like just, I don't know, they always have something they can make that's NA.
I don't know. I feel like it makes me a good conversationalist though, because I'm really just focused on what people are saying whenever I'm in a social setting.
So, and if you had a non-alcoholic drink, this would distract you from what people are saying. Oh, for
sure. I mean, anytime I have anything to eat in front of me, I'm just like downing it. So I feel like it'd be the same way with alcohol if I did drink.
My God, that's so interesting.
Yeah. Like the people who take sips, I don't get that.
Sips. Yeah.
No, I'm just like drinking. If I have a drink, I'm drinking it. I'm not like taking a minute or two between each sip.
Yeah. I didn't even know there was a different way to go about that. Yeah, I guess I'm a sipper. I guess. And then on this idea, and this is going to be something you like talk about or express in your film, or something you will show but not talk about, is gender performance, the idea that we perform our gender roles.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of performance that humans do in everyday life. And I think we do have a mask. And, there's that quote that like there's three versions of you, like what people see, what you show and who you actually are. And so I think that's just a really interesting idea. And this film being a character study, like I've just been reading a lot about just psychology and about kind of what's going on in our minds when we're interacting.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting to hear that like straight guys might be performing their masculinity, because to me it seems natural and authentic. I wouldn't think that it's intentional at all. Like, I don't know how it comes to them so easily. Like for example, I had a boyfriend who was bi, very, very straight, acting like no one would think he was gay. But he grew up in a household where it was like 3 women raising him. and he didn't grow up with any men. But like I like would question him. I'd be like, how do you have such masculine interests and talk the way you do if you're raised by women? Because I grew up with like 4 sisters, and I it doesn't come to me as easily. But to me, I've always just thought it was like innate or something.
Yeah. I think masculinity is definitely like performed by straight men. I think it is something, a story that men kind of have to keep telling themselves and reiterating to themselves.
I think it's a secret.
I don't think so. I think
because he wasn't willing to tell me. And I always felt like he was hiding it.
That he was secretly studying how to be a man? Like he was doing like night classes on how to be masculine? Like
I felt like it was intentional. Or no, I just questioned how it couldn't have been intentional. But yeah, he was telling me it wasn't.
I think that there's varying levels of like the masculinity you're comfortable with. It like comes to you naturally.
Yeah.
And then people try and add a little more, or sometimes try and do a little less. That's much more rare. Men who try and seem less masculine than they are, but I have seen it. But the wider that differential, that's when it's more visible. This is where people accuse like guys who have lifted trucks to like make up for some kind of, ego injury and all that. And so I think that's where you catch people. But I think that like everyone has a kind of like from nature for nurture, like a kind of like an ease with masculine characteristics. And if you try and push beyond that, like it becomes pretty obvious. I was thinking about like masculine gender roles. We went to the Wisconsin State Fair this weekend. Great time.
Nice.
We got to see all these cows and all this, like amazing agricultural products of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Do you know that Wisconsin generates $4 billion worth of agricultural products?
I believe it. I mean, they're like the main farm state.
Breadbasket, dairy basket of America.
Yeah.
But I was just walking around and I was wearing I was a patterned shirt that I had like tucked into some chinos, and I had like a braided leather belt and some boat shoes. And Nathan saw a like country looking like Wisconsin woman like look me up and down and just like shake her head in disgust, basically.
She said the F word in her head.
Yeah, like that. And that's like, it's so funny because when I hang with the gate rugby team, they're just like, you're so straight, like the stuff you talk about and like all that. They'll say like, oh, you're dressed so straight right now when I'm wearing like tucked in shirts. And it's just so funny that like different people can just like construe you in these different ways. And for it to like get to the point of disgust with a stranger is really like funny to me.
As somebody who was in a fraternity for 75% of college, I dropped out my senior year. I've definitely witnessed the bizarre kind of rituals and performances that young men put on, not just for women, but for each other as well. Yeah. Like the rush process, it was so interesting because it was very transparent who was putting on a mask of masculinity and who was comfortable with that and who was also uncomfortable with like trying to be this thing that they're not. And it's interesting the microcosm that exists within campus life, because the school I went to is like 80% Greek life, I think. Whoa. So if you don't rush,
that's interesting.
You're kind of like cooked.
It was like a big state school or a small school?
No, it was a private liberal arts school in Indiana.
I guess you have a semi-comparable experience to me. I went to a small tech school that had a strangely thriving Greek life. Yeah. And it was just like, hey, it's a small tech school. Like either join one of our D3 sports, join Greek life, or that's it. There's no other social life outside of that, basically.
And my school was out in the middle of nowhere. So literally all you could do is like party and drink. Yeah. It's definitely like a work hard, play hard mentality. But it's interesting, like when 75, 80% of people on campus are Greek life, it's a huge culture. And there's even a certain uniform almost that's expected of both genders. For the guys, it's like a basketball jersey and like white Air Force Ones. And for the girls, it's
Nike Elite socks.
Yeah, it's like whitewashed jeans and crop tops. And that's another thing I find interesting too, how women, I've noticed when they're in groups, they all dress very similar. Yeah. Like they kind of color coordinate, which I find really interesting because I'm like, how much of a conscious choice is that? Or are they like subconsciously just doing it?
Yeah, like a school of fish.
But but I just found, witnessing my experience in fraternity life, there are rituals that people go through. And, I've even seen some people like memorizing lyrics to the hottest song that's going to be playing at the party later that night. So they know the words and they can dance to it and stuff.
Oh man. I know that's like almost the homework mentality to dating that you see in some people where they're just like, you got to put in the work, like whatever levers you can operate to make yourself. This is, I guess, the origins of like a look maxing kind of spirit of people like relentlessly self-improving with a pure end goal of like attaining a female at the end.
And that's really bizarre too, because I think a lot of young boys, especially in Gen Alpha and Gen Z, and maybe this is from, informed by the manosphere and a lot of like modern dating advice, but I find that boys treat dating like a video game or almost like a game of chess. Like women are something to defeat almost, or like outsmart.
Yeah.
So that you can, acquire them. And acquire them sounds
it's
sounds
like
weird, but that's the mentality of it.
Yeah, no, it's just all very like I always complain about like guys who start doing magic, like guys who learn magic, because it just sounds horny for some. There's like something it's both horny and like deceptive. It's like, I'm gonna trick a woman, and then that's gonna make her more attractive. Like by being dishonest to her, like she's gonna be more. I don't know.
Well, David Blaine was part of the P word posse.
Yeah, and he got very Me Too'd.
Yeah. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty like clear case, I would say. It's one of those real ones.
But yeah, on it being a game, it made me think a little bit about how in Roman society, like sexual conquest and imperial conquest were conflated. They were metaphors for each other. And like within Roman society, like sex between equals was like sort of taboo, or it wasn't even something they could conceptualize. There had to be a power differential. And it's part of the reason too why Roman society was so like bisexual. It's because sex with men didn't have to be about you being attracted to them. It was about domination. And so there was a different element that they could get aroused by.
Yeah. Based on your position, like being the bottom was the feminine, and then being the top was masculine.
Yeah, like for Roman soldiers, they could have sex with male slaves or war captives, but if they did it with each other, they'd both be executed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is just wild. I mean, it's just, how do we ever look to them? Like the Roman, like we talked this in the podcast before of like America and how it tells a story of itself as a state. First looked to Rome and then like later looked to Greece more so. I mean, yes, Greece has its own interesting sexual mores and stuff. It did not feel as militarized, I don't think, as the Roman approach to it. I don't know. But yeah, I was always like, I was told that with going back to Greece, I guess, with the Spartans, they were like raised basically like you'd have homosexual sex first, and then they would wean you back onto women when it was time to like at the end of your military service to go like back and have kids. Like they'd present your wife to you, and they'd like bind her and like cut off her hair so she'd look more boyish and stuff. And they'd be like, "All right, here's your woman. We made her kind of boy looking. Here you go." The hair's gonna grow out. She's gonna start looking all female. So, but no, it's very interesting.
But yeah, the manosphere, like I don't really like it, of course, but I think it can be grouped in with like things like cryptocurrency, NFTs, drag racing, and parkour. And I think that these all appeal to a certain type of man because they're sort of fictional ways to sort of generate power. Basically, it's like, oh yeah, so this money, cryptocurrency, it has this like supposed value, and you know, you can jump through the air and do parkour, but like there's literally no point, and it's kind of not worth
this is such an interesting
and
grouping. I think I kind of know what you're going for here. These are like a cluster of like male behaviors that are so like, I think the risks outweigh the benefits. They're entirely male environments too, so they just encourage their worst kind of aspect. There's no women to kind of pump the brakes and like,
But there are ways for guys to feel better about themselves in like the material world, but there's something fictional about each of them. I mean, including the manosphere. You know, with that, it's just like, it's like a mantra, basically. It's like, it's not an ideology, it's not a religion, but it's like, just like this idea you can drill into your head over and over again that like they then feel better about themselves.
I see like manosphere / incel thinking is like kind of marketplace talk has like entered this, has created a sexual marketplace, I guess, where everything has to be talked about in a zero sum kind of thing. If there's only so many pairings that can happen between people, and some people are taking more than their share.
Yeah.
I don't know what like kicked it all off, but it seems like it's like running on its own fumes at this point. Like it's strangely like,
it's hard to not think about things in marketplace terms though. Like I had a college professor who, before we begin class, sometimes she'd say, okay, let's try to talk about this and not use market terms at all. And then she would even have to catch herself and be like, oh yeah, I used a market term. It's hard not to.
Crazy.
I wonder how much like living in a capitalist society kind of affects that, like, and kind of gets watered down into, or what word am I looking for? Like
dissolved into like the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in approaching dating like a market. You
Yeah.
know, like there's this idea of like the high value male, right? And
then, yeah, it's like we've applied supply and demand. We talk about like high value assets.
Hoflation.
Yeah,
There's hoflation is a big thing right now.
Yeah. It's just, it's so like deeply capitalist.
Yeah.
But on those kind of like strange male fascinations, like NFTs making money from nothing, like parkour making sport from nothing, I would say I'm skeptical of a lot of just like things that emerge are entirely male. And are very like new and supposedly fun. I was talking about this last night. We figured out what's fun for guys about 400, 500 years ago. And my timing for that is just like, that's the introduction of tobacco from the New World to here. Like the elementally fun things. Have you ever heard the phrase wine, women, and song? That it's like an old, it's used like a cautionary thing. It's like, there were two princes, like one had a good head on his shoulders. The other one was distracted by wine, women, and song. But song is great, music, meaning that, like, big fan of music. Got to watch out for the wine and the women. But the other elementally fun male things would be being outside, playing sports, watching animals compete. So horse racing is something I've done recently. I've watched a horse race. Gambling, card games, nicotine, talking to each other while consuming things. Like, these are kind of like fun guys being guys stuff. And so I think this, like, I don't know, do we need to be doing all that stuff and then, like, trading or sports betting at the same time too?
Oh, sports betting is a good one too.
Yeah. That is kind of Lindy, sadly, but not on the level it is. It should only be on animals. This is what I've decided recently. You can only gamble if it's on animals.
I mean, you really made a good case for this list I put together. But when I was making the list, I was just thinking about like stuff I associate with Miami, because like the people who moved to Miami, like they have this idea of like, it's like basically like the people who moved to DC, but they're dumb and they move to Miami and they have ideas about networking. They think like going on a boat and wearing white and talking to people who they think have money is networking.
I remember I was going to go to Florida. I thought I was going to have to like fly into Miami to go to Naples. And so I was like, I should find a place to like meet my friends before I go. I was looking at like a random restaurant in Miami and it was like a Brazilian like churrasco restaurant. So it had like, grilled meats and stuff. And then the photos for it were all very horny. Like all the photos were of like hot women like bursting out of their clothes, like holding spits of meat. And I was just like, there is a just general horniness to Miami that is like, I thought was contained to the clubs and to like the beaches and stuff. But even just a restaurant is like, no, it's horny here too, actually.
I mean, like imagine being raised by like a mom who had plastic surgery and a BBL. It's like that just like brings something into the home. I can't imagine.
Bring something into the home. They talked about this on NymphEd Alumni. They talk about, they had like a whole episode about BBLs, didn't they? Yeah. But they're saying that like women talk about how men become like ungovernable around you. Like when they know that you've like made and you've taken that level of risk to make yourself hotter, they're kind of like, oh, game's up. Like they just see you as so much more like game and available, which is horrifying to me that just like men who would have just walked past you are now just like animals. It just sounds scary to me. It's like, it's more of an indictment on men than women in that case. 100%. But
and I think BBLs are kind of out now because of how accessible they've become. I think the Kardashians have like taken out their.
I've heard that. Right? Everyone says that, and I was like, is this like how many scars? When they have tons of scars, and aren't they showing tons of skin all the time? Is it all airbrushed out? I just don't know how many times you can put in and take out a BBL.
The discourse on the Kardashians and like plastic surgery is like just kind of boring to me. Like I just don't really care.
It's just a known thing. Like they have.
I mean, they're like celebrities in California. Like and their mom's like Kris Jenner. What do you think they're gonna do?
It just feels like a moot point.
I mean, they did like create sort of what the standard beauty was for our generation. I feel like that's important. That's important to talk about. But I'm distrustful of any modification in any way, steroids, everything. Yeah.
I don't know. There's a great article. This is like such an old article now. It must be like 2018 or 19. But Gia Tolentino, this writer who gets a lot of flack for various things, but she's a consistently interesting culture writer for the New Yorker. And she talked about the rise of like Instagram face, which is built off of this Kardashian ideal, but it's cat-like eyes. Like it's from an Armenian base, like that's what they actually are. But then it's been modified and it like takes the hot parts of black women, it takes the hot parts of Asian women. It's just this like cobbled together Frankenstein thing. And that's another male hobby I view with great suspicion is just MMA in general. This will offend all of my male friends and those who listen, because every man I know watches it and cares about it and bets on it, it feels. But it's just very interesting that in our search for like what is the ideal hot, we arrived at like an Armenian woman with a lot of plastic surgery. And then in our search for what is the dominant fighting style, it turns out it's taking Dagestani guys and teaching them Brazilian jiu-jitsu with a little bit of Krav Maga mixed in. It's like, and that's the dominant win scenario.
I mean, would you put MMA in with that group we've created?
Yeah, they're like, I would just say broadly, male hobbies I am skeptical of.
Okay.
Male enjoyment I'm skeptical of.
I wouldn't group that in with them, because what I'm critical about with parkour is that it's like, they're creating fictional scenarios to risk their lives. With a fight, the
real.
end goal is to conquer someone else, and it's a sport. Like, it's a little bit, I can wrap my head around that more.
Yeah. I was talking about like why I'm okay with boxing and not MMA. And I totally accept that like boxing is more dangerous than MMA because of just the concussions, the relentless, more padding creates more danger. Is that classic like thing where people are more emboldened to do headshots? Yeah. But I think that in this case, like the aesthetics are most important. Seeing two heavily tattooed guys customizing every part of themselves. They always have the craziest like mouthpiece, and they've done something zany with their hair, and they of course always have tattoos and crazy shorts. Like they're tricking out. They're like pimp my body kind of thing of like trying to express that they actually do have control over their body. And they do have control over their body. I mean, look at the amazing athletes they are as they are being tossed into a like blood match for rich sheiks around them, gambling on them. Like it just looks so crass to me that I don't care if it's safer. Like it's bad for the culture to see this happen, to see a guy with like oozing blood crawling on the ground. Like these are bad things. Like I know, like I was just watching old Olympic stuff, and to see like Muhammad Ali like shaking from his like what they call like pugilists, Parkinson's pugilistica, like boxing Parkinson's basically.
Oh really?
Yeah, he had that at the end of his life, and like seeing him struggle, and then but the sport looks prettier. The men are on their feet. Yeah, it's dignified. They're like wearing shorts, but I do think that it's like I think MMA is a little corrosive for the culture, even though it's trying to fix all the problems that was associated with boxing. They're trying to compensate the guys more. They're like
MMA is trying to fix the dangers of boxing.
That's what they kind of defined themselves on when they started. It's like, no, this is like more for the fighters. This is not going to be those corrupt promoters that we had last time. This is a new start. Like we're creating the ultimate fighting league. That's my understanding of it. I would love
somebody ramming their shin into their nose.
Dagestani guy ramming his shin into someone. But yeah.
I mean, I think MMA is interesting because I'm not that into MMA or stuff like that, but I think it does seem to like kind of tame this violent side of humans.
It's a blow off valve for a culture. Like we need to have a violent thing to watch, so we don't do it. It's our
so
purge.
We don't go to war. You know, something like that. And I mean, the Aztecs were doing it thousands of years ago, right? To have these games so that people. You could satisfy your bloodlust or whatever.
Yeah, like war games to like keep it tamped down.
Right.
Yeah,
so I think it kind of is.
I think it's possible to not have bloodlust though. I'm tired of violence.
Yeah.
Well, I think nature. I've been reading a lot of Camille Paglia. Sexual personae for this film. It's very thought provoking. She's kind of insane.
Oh yeah.
I do not. This is my first time reading her, so I'm not like that familiar with her other stuff. But yeah, some of that stuff that she says is crazy. But she does like make a lot of really thought provoking points. And I love what she says about nature creates by violence and destruction. The commonest violence is childbirth. Nature gives males infusions of hormones for dominance in order to hurl them against the paragliding mystery of woman from whom they would otherwise shrink. Lust and aggression are fused in male hormones. Anyone who doubts this hasn't spent much time around horses. Stallions are so dangerous you have to cage them in steel stalls. And I think that there kind of is like, and this is what my film explores too, like there is this secret, maybe violent side that is in men. That's why war, I think, will always be part of life. I think violence will always be part of life.
No, yeah. It's just like, that is, I don't know, such a thing that I would like beat myself up for, and like being a man. I feel like I don't know what stage of life this would be for me, but maybe it was like in college or so. And I think there was a bit where I almost did feel like pretty apologetic for being a man. I would say a little self-hating in some ways. I think it was out of that thing of just like, wait, of the two genders, like there's one more capable of violence than the other, and I'm that one. Like, it's just kind of a bummer to see that. We've touched on this in the podcast of like how much like violence around you can you tolerate, and I think that maybe it's a part of like, you know, frontal lobe fusing or all that kind of stuff. But like I become just more and more like anti-violent as it goes on. I say as I've joined rugby, but that is my blow-off valve. That is my like, you know, that is my simulated war.
Yeah,
you know, I do that so that I don't like get really mad at clients and stuff.
Punch a hole in the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like every there's that joke that like guys are always like punching holes in walls.
Have you ever done that?
I actually have. Yeah, when I was a kid, I have.
Me
so
too.
So I feel like it is true. I think
I've
every
never done
guy's
that.
No.
I threw a shoe at a wall and caused a hole. That's a little similar.
You've lived in very like old historic homes. They usually have lath and plaster walls, so that'll mess you up if you punch one of those. But no. This should be studied, building materials as manifested in male rage. Because when I punched through a door, I was just like an angry teenager, and like I forget what it was that started it. But yeah, I punched, and it was like, you know, living in this stucco house in Las Vegas with a hollow door, and your hand just goes like straight through it. I was like, oh my God, like that shouldn't be possible. But no.
Yeah, because most of the homes I lived in have been a lot older. The doors are solid wood. But no, I did live in a home once where like I lived in a room that like an angry teenager had lived in, and he punched 4 times into the door.
Oh.
So I guess
angry teenager.
Yeah. But no, I was saying that like about bloodlust, people can get tired of it and choose to like not enjoy violence. I've seen a lot of things this summer, and I've been pushed to my limit, you know, to feed off of the conversation we've had over several episodes. You know, I recently have had feelings for the first time ever in my life of like relating to people who feel like Chicago's not safe and wanting to get out. And I think I'll be able to get over it, but it's put a lot of things in perspective. I read news articles in a different way now. I can like imagine the pain that people were in a way that I couldn't before.
Yeah, those news stories always seem so alien to me because I've never, thankfully, been in an experience like, you know, a massive car crash or getting robbed or surviving a house fire or something like that. But it's weird because it's just like text on a screen, but for some people, that's the worst day of their entire life.
I have a friend who's an EMT, and I'm just like, how do you like, you're meeting everyone on the worst day of their lives, and that is just Tuesday for you. Like, how do you do that? That's terrible. I went with my uncle like to get his dog put down, and that's people's day job. Is they're like, all right, like we'll look at the dog and we'll like assess the situation. And she was like, all right, like here's the information. Like you have to make the decision about the dog. And it's like, how many times do you do this a day? How many times do you give people the information and wait for them to make the decision? Like they should like. It should be like war, where like you do cycles on and cycles off. You should be deployed to the veterinary clinic, and then they send you to Hawaii to a beach for like 6 months after to decompress.
I did 2 tours at Pause.
Yeah, literally. Like they're amazing.
Yeah.
Another thing we should touch on, a part of this whole like I guess the broader like male condition. I guess we could have titled this like the masculinity crisis. We could have talked about that, but that's so clicky. That's so clickbaity.
I mean, for the gay section, I was really like, I have a lot to say about desire.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can start getting more through speed running this.
Yeah. Male desire through the way of pornography. It feels like there's a anti-pornography like shift coming in the culture, or at least a skepticism. I feel like I was cool and ahead of the curve on this, so it's great to see everyone catching up to it. I believe that like, yes, like sex is a part of life. It's a part of the human condition. It's a beautiful part of it, but it fares better when it's not everywhere and it's not pervasive. It just shouldn't be in your face. I think that images have a lot of power. This is a belief we both have, Nathan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what this would, like many things, I don't want to make stuff illegal. I just want people to choose not to do it. You know, I'm very much like a, come on guys, can't we all follow the rules and have fun kind of person. But yeah.
I mean, I think pornography is both implicitly and explicitly in front of us, like at all times. Like you open up social media and like what I was talking about with like Facebook, like these like AI depictions of like half naked like Gal
Gadot. Yeah.
And I don't even know why. I must have like accidentally clicked on something and Facebook is putting up. But I can't imagine growing up right now. Like I feel like 13-year-olds have full on like porn addictions at this point. And I know teachers and they say they hear, you know, they're second graders making comments about blowjobs. And
I feel like I've always heard that line, and it's getting younger and younger and the acts are getting more depraved and stuff. No, it's like a correct perennial kind of concern. But yeah, like I want to make clear, I'm not like asking for a sexless like Puritan world, you know. But I'm asking for more tact from like the people who can, which is I guess advertisers, and people in media and all that. I don't know. It feels like we're given this weird dichotomy where there's like in a movie, it's either no sex scenes because everyone hates them nowadays. Gen Z hates sex scenes and all that, or it's just like Euphoria. You know, like the show Euphoria.
Just like softcore.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, are they allowed to like put this on television? I know it's HBO and they have different rules, but like, wow.
How graphic does it get?
It's bad. I don't really want to even describe it, actually. I just like don't want that audio of me saying what happens in the first episode, in the first scene. The thing was, I enjoyed watching the show. I thought it was interesting, but I saw it as like superfluous. I saw it like as approaching the definition of pornography, which is just titillation for titillation's sake, like not art's sake. But it's just like, I feel like it was hiding behind the art in a way.
Yeah, Euphoria is an interesting one. I honestly hate it so much and find it just like really funny to watch it. I think Sam Levinson is like a weirdo, and I've really enjoyed watching his downfall in real time. I didn't really watch The Idol. I watched like the first 2 episodes. I didn't find it as like awful as the critics thought it was, but I could see where it was going. But what's interesting about the Euphoria thing is like the character Nate, I found the most interesting out of all of them. And he's kind of like
Jacob Elordi.
Yeah,
like
Jacob Elordi's character.
Bisexual jock.
Yeah, I found that his
compelling.
Like psychology like extremely interesting. And I feel like people just talk about Sydney and her Sweeneys.
Yeah.
What was interesting about his psychology?
He's basically like this jock, like football. I don't know if he's the quarterback or whatever, but he's like the jock guy of the high school. And he is basically filled with like this insane amount of like rage and internalized, I guess, everything, like misogyny. He's basically attracted to transgenders, right? Or is it his
Trans
dad?
women? Yeah. Well, his dad is too. Like they both have this kind of shared obsession with, I don't know, it's like they're both, I would say, paraphilic in some way. And he has a sense of shame at seeing his father do it, but then it's also developed this own like thing in himself too. And he's like self-hating for that. So very like interesting, menacing character, I would say.
Yeah, and I think Elordi just really like nails the white American guy really well.
Hilarious. He's Australian?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's of like Basque descent, which is why it's such an interesting Star Wars last name. Elordi. Yeah, they always have cool names.
Yeah, I've never seen Euphoria. I shy away from sort of like coming of age movies or TV shows where it's like young kids figuring themselves out by doing bad things. I just don't like that genre very much. Yeah. I was forced to watch Spring Breakers twice in college, and it affected me for weeks each time.
Oh, that's a great movie, actually. But I hate Weeds, and I hate what's the other show by that guy? It's in Chicago. Shameless.
Oh, Shameless.
I hate both of those because they just do a lot of like shock value. Like we're gonna have a kid doing an inappropriate thing. I remember I think it was either Weeds or Shameless, but like the kid in middle school was like trying to set up a threesome with 2 girls, and I was like, I hate this. I hate this so much. They're just like, you can just see the director like looking at you through the screen and be like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen.
Dude,
you know?
Isn't this weird?
Like, it just what if I wrote me to no end.
Euphoria, I think my main problem with Euphoria is that it's a show operating entirely within the male gaze, but it's cosplaying as some like feminist empowering show.
Yeah. Like, look at how many times we have women talking to women. Look at how well we passed the Bechdel test. And then, all right, cut to the softcore pornography from a male view.
Yeah. And also Hunter Schafer, I think she's an incredible actor. I really like, what's her, not Jules. Is she Jules?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
sounds about right.
Rue is
Zendaya. Zendaya. I'm a Zendaya apologist. Whenever people say she's wooden or limited acting wise, I'm like, no, she's actually amazing.
I think Challengers really kind of like solidified that.
I know she's kind of always doing the same thing, but I love it.
I was about to ask you when you were talking about your film, is it going to be a Challengers-esque? But it doesn't sound like there's a bi angle.
No, not that angle, but their Challengers kind of did remind me of the script that I'm working on.
I didn't see Challengers. Yeah, that didn't appeal to me either. But again, I have bad taste in movies and TV. So.
But yeah, I think right now everything is pornographic, but nothing is sexy.
Yeah,
you know
that line I've like heard echoes of that definitely. Yeah. That's there's that article about like the Marvel movies where like everyone is beautiful and no one is having sex. Like you know, it's just these glistening perfect bodies, and it's like, all right, a little tasteful kiss, and then let's just all leave the room.
One of the things that I'm particularly inspired by for this next film is Antony and Cleopatra by William Shakespeare. I'm a huge Shakespeare nerd. I really fell in love with him my senior year of college when I took like a 400 level Shakespeare class with like the hardest professor at my school. And she was incredible. And she's had a huge impact on my writing. She was known for printing out your essay, and then she would basically go through every single word. So by the time she gave you your essay back, like it was just covered in like notes, and she was really incredible person. Yeah. But so I started reading Shakespeare plays. I read almost all of them my senior year, and I just love how modern they feel. When you read them, like it feels like people who are still around here. And I think that he is perfectly rated as a writer. Like I don't think he's overrated at all. I think he really is like one of the greatest of all time.
I like this came out like some researcher ranked what he believes to be the most intelligent people throughout history, and it goes number 1 Leonardo da Vinci, number 2 Shakespeare. Yeah, and I always like that, like putting Shakespeare above Einstein. It just seems like an interesting conversation to have that. I like the opening of that, I would say.
Definitely. One of the main characters in this film, definitely I'm taking from Cleopatra in a postmodern context. I think she's just a really exciting and complex character to explore, especially with the topic of feminism. And I think you can go back and forth on her character, either being an empowering person or maybe not being that good of a successful of a depiction of a powerful woman. Just what really interests me is like the idea of this woman who weaponizes her desirability and seductiveness and beauty purely to have power over men, in this case, Mark Antony. So there's a scene I really like where Cleopatra, she's talking about how her and Mark Antony got drunk the night before, and she basically puts her jewelry on him and then takes his breastplate and sword and is marching around the room wearing his clothes while he's wearing her clothes. And I just think this imagery is just like a great depiction of Cleopatra and her sort of insatiable sexual passion as a mechanism for this much larger lust for power over men. Yeah. So she literally is able to possess the strength of a man and discard it when she chooses to. The image of her dominating the sword is also phallic as well. Yeah. I wrote a whole essay in college about how guns in film are all metaphors for penis.
I mean, that makes intuitive sense.
I love phallic imagery. But.
Yeah. I've seen cowboy films where like they shoot from the waist, and I feel like that's pretty literal.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, with the Cleopatra scene, I initially kind of read that as like in her chambers, she can act out this fantasy of like, even though she's like conquered female power in a sense, that she can use her like feminine wiles to achieve like the exact end goal that men want as well. Like that's not enough. Like she still wants to taste the other side and like kind of play around for a second as though she was a conqueror before like checking that stuff back in at the end of the night and then reemerging as like the female power that she is. That was my reading. But no, that's like really interesting to see how you'll like, I don't know, weave that into the story there. Yeah. And also what you'll do with a Mark Antony character as well. I think that's always...
Yeah, I mostly know about Mark Antony and Cleopatra through the HBO show Rome, and they depict her in that way too. But that's a really good series. It was the most expensive TV show ever made when it came out, and it's a real sleeper. Most people haven't seen it.
It's been on like my list. Every time I'm on HBO and I see that show, I'm like, I really want to start the show because
it's visually so authentic. That's like I think the best part of it. It's just like it's historically. It has the right sort of contours of history, but it's not like a historical show. It's really just like, that is actually probably what ancient Rome looked like. That's like the closest representation to what the city actually looked like. And that's what's really like breathtaking about it.
Yeah.
I always say like, if something is a historical movie, like the baseline enjoyment of it is always going to be higher for me. Like I saw Ferrari and House of Gucci, and I think neither were super amazing movies, but just like, oh, they're wearing the outfits from that period. That just brings me to like above the threshold of like, this was worth $13. Like that always like does it for me. So I feel like I would really enjoy Rome.
Yeah. But yeah, Cleopatra and Mark Antony, both characters in the show. And yeah, their relationship has been one of the most famous throughout history. Yeah.
I think like the way to round this out is like, as men seek to like get female attention, become desirable, I think we get into this kind of discussion about like look maxing and self-improvement as a means to an end. And I'm broadly just a very big advocate of self-improvement. I don't know who would say otherwise, so maybe that's a very boring thing for me to say. Someone who's like, no, I don't have a growth mindset. I have a death mindset. I have a non-improving mindset.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think you can do things for the wrong reason, and then eventually they'll become the right reason. I always think of like that joke where it's like you start going to the gym for girls and you start doing it to impress guys, and next thing you know, you're up there in a Speedo in a bodybuilding competition. Like men start a lot of hobbies for that. I've heard the same thing about cars too. Like a guy will just be like, oh, I want a big Mustang to impress women, and there he is like 15 years later driving like a custom imported Miata or something. But
yeah, I think that goes back into like the rituals and sort of performance that that males feel like they have to put on. Because it's funny because like I see men at the gym who are like going for this giant like bodybuilder like Chris Hemsworth body, and then the woman he likes is just gonna pick like the Timothy Chalamet like body type, you know?
No.
Like there is like a weirdly almost like masturbatory aspect to going to the gym of like it feels like you're worshiping men almost when you're going to the gym.
I had a friend in college who had in his room he had like bodybuilding inspiration photos like on his wall, like towards the top of it, and I always called it his like buff guy crown molding. It was at the top of the wall over there. But yeah, I don't know. Like when I was more into going to the gym, I did notice like how much I was thinking about men's physiques and all that. I'm like, I think I'm losing the plot a little bit here. But yeah, it becomes one of those, as I was kind of like wondering aloud with like women who choose to like really, they self-improve and look smacks in a way to like fit the ideal mold of what the average consumer like wants a woman to look like the men who do that as well. It's like, when will you be happy? Like when you look like a Hollywood movie star? And some people would just be happier with just like a few steps below that, you know, not to do the whole dad bod discourse and all that, but you'd be surprised what like people will be very happy with physique wise.
I think a lot of the conventional like dating advice is like go to the gym and like you know, work on yourself first and you'll be ready for a relationship and it'll come to you. And I think a lot of guys think that they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing and still not like getting any meaningful results. I think just because you dress well and just because you have a good job and you make a lot of money and just because you have like cool pickup lines doesn't mean that like
you'll be
women
assigned
are
a
going to
girlfriend.
be attracted to you. Assigned a girlfriend.
Yeah, I always say like
it's like your vibes still suck.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of these men like secretly yearn for like the Orthodox Jewish setup, where like literally if you do the right things, you are assigned a girlfriend.
Yeah,
like if you are just like an all right member of the community, like you show up, you have a business that you don't mess up, you're not an alcoholic, you're not like, you know, completely out of control, like then there's like, all right, here's your girlfriend. She'll become your wife soon. And so I think a lot of guys would be very happy with that system, which is unfortunate because it's just like that's just not what we should be striving for. I don't think. Nothing against the Hasidic Jewish community,
but on people who are doing everything right but still aren't desirable in the marketplace, I feel like I see this with gay doctors especially, where yes, they have a high paying job, they're making a lot of money, but they don't have anything to talk about because their lives have just been about school, and they're still about work or school. And like, they are some of the loneliest people I know in the gay community. And it made me think too about how there's been like some discourse recently about how like waiters or gig workers, like men who have jobs where they're low paying, like they oftentimes, they might not necessarily have relationships that are the longest lasting, but they're able to get relationship after relationship very quickly and easily. Because I think there's something to say that like, they're very passionate, and like people who are living on the edge, like they can make you feel loved in a way that like people who are like, oh yeah, so this person is a nice match, and they're looking at you analytically instead of passionately. Like passion is like it can really like make people feel like what you're feeling if you're expressing how you feel to them. It's like that's what I think is like missing from those guys where they're doing everything right and they're still single.
Yeah, there's just no authenticity.
No, I feel on that kind of like getting passed over for someone who like doesn't fill out the boxes that you have in your head. Somehow it's just like, oh wait, but he doesn't make as much money as me, and he doesn't do this, and he doesn't do that, and it's like that's not how people work. It's not a checkbox system. No. It's not like you'll miss out on a lot of people if you have like this perfect image in your head. If you're not willing to like always be surprised. I don't know, people who actually do have like an extremely firm type, I'm always like, all right, like
the problem with the perfect image is that like once you reach that, you're not a dynamic person And like
Yeah,
that's
your
what's interesting
stasis.
about people is how
Yeah.
like dynamic they are.
How they'll change. But yeah. I had a friend talk about she went on a date with a guy who's like a waiter, bartender type, like tattooed. I guess I would say I didn't see him physically. And I think she showed me a photo. It was 70s queer baiter. I'd say there was a mustache present.
Yeah.
Maybe it was more Mac DeMarco variety than like 70s queer baiter
DIY.
variety. But he said to her on this date, he was like, yeah, my look is very in right now. So I have a pretty easy time on the apps and stuff. And I was like, that's insane. Like, what are you going to do? And she's like, well, I'm going to see him next weekend. she was like in his thrall of just like, yeah, he's like the perfect bartender guy. Like, that's what you want. And I almost kind of respect. I also kind of like his attitude of like, well, it's good. Like, while you're in demand, like play for it. But no, very strange.
Yeah. Yeah. Any concluding thoughts on straight male desire before we go into the gay section?
Your time to shine.
So I'm really excited to talk about this. This is an idea I've had for a long time that I finally can share on this platform that I've been using to finally share my ideas with the world, which is our podcast. But I've thought about yearning, which is an offshoot of desire, as being the underlying experience of all gay men. And I first sort of encountered this idea in 2012 when I read the Vice Guide to Being Gay during high school. It lists one thing that is quintessential to the gay experience for each letter of the alphabet. I can't actually say the first thing I listed, but yeah, like G for grinder, stereotypes for S. And the one that stood out for me was the entry for the letter Y, yearning. Oh God, the yearning. Only what, like 1 or 2% of people are gay? And as I'm sure you've realized already, straight men are infinitely hotter than gay guys. You're going to fall in love with your brother's friends, and your dad's friends, and your friends' friends, and guys in the street, and the guy who sits next to you at work. Gay cinema would lead you to believe that straight guys are seducible, but they're not, and you're going to spend 25% of your time embarrassing yourself in front of them. It's probably best not to ever get drunk in situations where you're likely to have to interact with a straight person. It will not end well. And so, actually, this article had resonated with me immediately upon reading it in 2012, which I think I was about like 16 at the time. I'd sent this article to like the only other gay guy I was friends with in high school, and he was also like, oh, I relate to this too. Because by this time, when I was 16, I was already like, I'd already been online dating for years, and I had already had a fruitful dating, or like a fruitless dating life, because there was actually like a gay dating website for middle schoolers and high schoolers. It got shut down.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would think.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West in the early days. Wow.
But yeah, it was called the GOIC, which stood for like the Gay Youth Corner. And I actually saw like people on that website who I then would be like, oh, are you gay? Like I saw someone who was like a family friend. And then the guy who was talking to in high school, I saw him on there. And that was how I found out he was gay. And we started being friends with each other. But yeah, I got in like really disillusioned with dating before I'd even had my first boyfriend at 17. Because I came out really young at 13 to my family, and then at 14 to all my friends. And even, you know, as someone who was not in the dating or trying to date people that long, I'd already gotten like sort of exasperated with like these feelings of yearning at the time.
Yeah, I talked to a friend on the rugby team about this, and he like talked about that same kind of vein of like his best friend in high school, like he really kind of fell for him, and eventually he did confess the feelings, and he said, yeah, my friend told me, he's like, I'm so sorry, I wish I could be that for you. And he said like, man, I would have just liked if you called me like the F slur and just like called it a day. Like that would have hurt less than this. Like then that kind of like, I wish I could meet you there. It's like almost a slap to the face kind of. But no, that just seems so, it's interesting because you think about like the straight male yearning. If the girl's not into you, it's like you can take it personally and all that. You would think with gay male yearning, the impossibility of it would be comforting, but it's not. It offers no comfort. It doesn't make the yearning go away.
I mean, I think it should. I've always had
a lot of things the emotions should, and they often do not.
No, because I've never had the experience of falling in love with a straight guy. I've always been more guarded. But that part of the entry, you know, where it says you fall in love with your brother's friends and your dad's friends and your friends' friends, like it's actually very common for gay men to have fallen in love with like a straight friend when they were growing up. And then I've heard many times that it drives them to being suicidal or depressed. And it's not like worth your time. Like I actually have a friend who recently they had been getting a crush on someone, falsely thought that they were like gay or bi, and turns out they're not. And every time I've seen them since, they've wanted to talk about this with me for an hour. And each time I'm like, it's like, I would never catch feelings for anyone until I first knew what their sexuality was, because it has such bad consequences,
Yeah.
And then whenever I like found out after high school that like guys who I thought were straight were actually gay or bi, I would like feel like really upset because I was unable to express my emotions freely or like have crushes or anything. And I had to wait for everyone else to turn out they were gay. Like,
to be gay.
Yeah, because I feel like by the time I had finished high school, like maybe 5 guys were out of the closet. But now as an adult who's many years out of high school, I found out like 20 to 25 in my year were gay. And just so many people that like I maybe could have like had a relationship with, but like I didn't know that they liked guys and I didn't try to pursue them. Yeah.
I have a friend he's from a super small town in like downstate Illinois, and there was one other gay guy at high school, so they ended up dating, of course, just kind of pushed together, and they moved to Chicago together right when they graduated, go to the big city and get out of the small town, and they broke up pretty soon after that, and they are best friends to this day. They're like, there was nothing really romantic between us, like to start, but it was just like, it's just someone I'll always share that very important time with, of someone who knew what I went through in high school, and we went to Chicago and we're like, "You good? You good? Yeah, let's do this. Let's go actually like start our lives in dating, not just with someone we've been assigned to," which I think is, I don't know, it's kind of admirable. Like of all the stories of people being friends with their exes, I think that's one of the best ones I've ever heard.
Probably, definitely. I remember, I was out at a bar one time, a very straight bar. I think I was at Sluggers in Wrigleyville.
That's maybe the straightest bar. That's what was coming to my mind.
Which I try to avoid.
Yeah, to the listener, this is a bar that has a batting cage inside it, so you can practice your baseball swing.
Right. Yeah. And dueling pianos. And
that's not crazy like straight, but still.
And I remember I was like looking out in the crowd, and there was this, I guess, very obvious gay man our age, like the age of people who go to Sluggers, and he was going around and like trying to dance and flirt with the guys who were there. And I remember feeling like a genuine like concern for him. I think pity was there too, but like a genuine concern, because like, when I grew up with gay people, so like I'm comfortable and used to it, and like if I was ever like hit on by a gay guy, like I was always more so just kind of flattered and I was respectful about it, like whatever. But I feel like most straight guys, like if you even like slightly flirt with them, they'll like punch you in the face or something. Like there are like very violent, like visceral reactions that straight men have to being confronted with like.
I mean, have you ever heard of the gay panic defense thing? Yeah, it's like there are states still where if you're suddenly in a situation where like a gay guy is like hitting on you, you can get like a lighter sentence or get off the hook if you like hurt or kill them.
Like stand your ground law.
Yeah, basically that, where it's like Your Honor, like this man, look at like his heterosexuality was threatened. Of course he killed that man. Like, and everyone would be like, yes, fair. Like that's how it is. Yeah. So those are like being struck down state by state. They're very archaic.
I've never had that happen because I just don't. There was a period actually where I tried that a little bit when I was like around 18, and then I just came to find that like, gay men being 2% of the population, I might as well treat it like it's 0% in public, because it's like every time, like there's only like maybe a 1 in 25% chance, or I don't want to say 1 in 50 because that just sounds ridiculous, but it is actually more like 1 in 50 chance that they also like men. So it's like, what incentive is there for me to like try to be romantic?
The risk reward is not amazing on that.
Yeah.
But on people coming out after high school, I wish there were definitely some out kids in high school. We had a whole gay straight alliance, of course, as every school had. That was gay kids, mostly furries, also of the straight kids. That's like commonly remarked on like universal American experience, is that it was just like one twink and then a whole bunch of furries in your local GSA. But I don't know. I wasn't really I wish I could tell you that like the jock from my school turned out to be gay, but it was like mostly the most stereotypical kind of like everyone thought they were gay kids turned out to be gay.
You know who was gay.
And it was such like a forgiving, like my school was like this high school that had no sports. It was all academically focused. People were nerdy. They called us like the nerdy school. And Yeah, it just would have been fine, I thought. But it's not about just school. It's about families. It's about people have tons of reasons for not coming out, you know. But it's just we weren't like in this like white bread dude bro school. Like I don't know.
Yeah. People have the reasons. I mean, I once, like in between high school and when I started freshman year of college, I dated this guy a bit over the summer, and he came out during that summer to his lesbian moms. And he'd been hiding it all of high school that he was like attracted to men because he just had some sort of complex, even though obviously his family was going to accept him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just people have their
It'd be
reasons.
crazy if they didn't. That would be insane if his moms were like just this type of closed-minded lesbian that would just be like, gay? Like, no, but
Yeah.
that's really interesting.
I think what you're talking about, like I definitely like feel for that, and I just find it really like kind of tragic, just that you have to kind of operate with these walls on you when you're trying to form relationships. And I think one of the most heartbreaking characters in a movie I've seen is Philip Seymour Hoffman in Boogie Nights. If you guys have seen that,
Not seen
film.
it, but I love Philip.
Really good film. But throughout the film, we see him basically. It's about
Porn in the 70s, yeah, the golden age of porn.
And he's like the sound guy, and Mark Wahlberg is of course the main actor. But throughout the film, we see him very earnestly and respectfully, basically prying for Wahlberg's attention. And in the kind of the climax of his efforts, they're at like a New Year's Eve party, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's character is like, "Hey, I want to show you my new car I just bought. Like it's a really cool like Mustang or whatever." And so Dirk, who's Wahlberg's character, goes out there. And he's showing him the car, and then Philip Seymour Hoffman tries to kiss him, and he immediately goes into like, "Oh, I didn't mean it. I'm so drunk right now. I'm so drunk." You know, very classic. Like it was a joke. I'm so drunk. Haha. And Wahlberg's character is actually like really nice about it. He's like, "Oh, like no, you're good. Let's just go back inside. Like the countdown is coming. Whatever. Let's go back inside." And Philip Seymour Hoffman stays outside, and he sits in the car, and he just starts like calling himself like stupid, like over and over and over again. And it's such like a pitiful, sad performance, but he does it so well. And I think I just think about that scene a lot, and I just think it's really like tragic and sad. And
Yeah. I mean, I, as a gay man, I've just avoided getting in those situations.
Yeah.
And,
The way you talk about this, how you can like pull the emergency brake and not feel feelings for things, I'm kind of impressed by it.
I mean, okay, say there's a cute guy who's straight. I'll feel something for a week, and then I'm just like, no. I shut it off though. It like I really stopped thinking about them in any like romantic way.
Wow.
And yeah, like that also ties into one of the things the article suggested, that like straight men are infinitely hotter than gay guys. And so I'm going to be on the record and say this. Okay, why do gay men desire straight men? I do kind of agree that straight guys are hotter, but it's not necessarily because of like the way that they look. Because I do think gay guys are fitter. I think they have better bodies. They take care of themselves more. It's more so that like gay guys just carry themselves with like, they're very self-conscious. And I think it's due to minority stress of just like being different than everyone else. And they're very aware of their actions. And then the way that straight men carry themselves is much more confident. And I think that's what's attractive, is just like the self-confidence that like straight men have.
But on the subject of like even just telling if gay guys are like telling gay guys from straight guys, I don't know. I don't even think, I thought I had a good gaydar, but that's what gets you, is when you think you're confident, you're wrong, I would say. So things always surprise you. But I heard someone once say that like in terms of gay men who look straight, that's maybe like 25% of the population. If you see them walking down the street and they read as straight. And then in terms of how they speak, that would lower the percentage to like 5%, like sound straight, quote unquote. And then when you look at the subject matter they're talking about, then it lowers to like 1%, basically. And I don't know, that I think I've seen something of that kind of experience. I was living in Boys Town for like almost 2 years, and it's, I don't know, it's a very like interesting dynamic when you see that. Like, I think it's, I don't know. I don't think the nurture and nature discussion is too interesting on that, of like what causes people to be gay. I don't like the whole focus on that. We need to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
I don't think, but it's just interesting how it can present itself so differently in guys.
Well, in Boys Town, the gay men who live there are part of the gay community, and they're enculturated, and they share the same cultural practices. And like, I just think that like that's not necessarily the best sample of like gay men. Because like the gay men who move to Boys Town need to be in the heart of things, and they're
self-selects.
intense.
Yeah. It's like they're not even like the Andersonville gay guys. That's different. And I actually really respect the gay guys who don't live in a gayborhood, you know, who kind of like break it out on their own, like you.
It's hard though. I don't live far from Boys Town. I live pretty close to it actually. But people aren't. Well, they think I live too far away to date. Like they act like I live in a different city sometimes.
Yeah.
When I really don't.
I think Chicagoans who don't have cars will like date along their line. Sometimes I've heard it's very strong in New York. That's like such a thing. Yeah. But I think it's a fair thing. So like, yeah, you not being like if you were in Uptown or you were in River North, I think they'd be a lot more willing. But
yeah, Red Line. But I live off the Blue Line. It's mostly like art gay guys who lives over here.
Yeah.
More working class gay guys too, who like may or may not be out. If they did come out, it was like more recently.
I think you'd like that more than like a typical Boys Town gay guy, you know?
Yeah. No, I was thinking about this with this week's episode and how the gay guys I've dated, how they've come to start dating men from like strange angles and they're not really that gay.
Conventional. Like
yeah. Like I mean my second boyfriend, I think he had BPD. And BPD guys, they're way more likely to like they're more bisexual, and like I think that's what was going on with him. My last boyfriend was asexual. I think he was just dating guys because he was more comfortable like being in a relationship with a guy because he's more comfortable being friends with them. I definitely would say I'm like less into straight guys, but it feels weird to like say that and pronounce it. I have a gay guy friend who is like kind of hard on me for being so critical of gay people in the gay community. And I think it's a bit warranted. I don't like walk around saying it all the time, but like
yeah, but you've expressed to me that like you don't always feel at home in the gay community.
I get stressed out. Like when I go to a hangout with our friend group and there's 20 people, if there's one gay guy, it'll like really stress me out. I like don't want to talk to them.
Oh my god. That's crazy.
No, I feel like a lot more comfortable like not with people, because the thing is with gay guys, like they oftentimes want to sleep with people and even if they're not, they're also like, does he want to sleep with me? And they're just like thinking about that, even though we're trying to be friends. And it's just like, it comes across and it's just like unsettling.
Yeah, it's interesting that like you can just kind of perceive that in the background of it. It's unfortunate.
But yeah, I do think as like a gay man, if you want a relationship, you have to work really hard for it. Like there was a 2017 survey that found like gay men, 70% of them are single. And that's compared to like 35% of straight men. It's about double.
Whoa.
And I found this to be true. It's like, it has to be like your number one goal if you want to get into like a gay relationship. It can't happen by accident.
Interesting. Yeah, because like I think what you're told as a straight guy is like, don't like be looking for it and then it will find you like a relationship, which I think is broadly true. But it's the opposite for gay guys. You have to be actively like clearly looking for this. Yeah.
No, getting into a gay relationship is like looking for a job. You have to go online or you have to get a referral. Yeah. You can't meet people organically. It's like literally doing work. You have to like ask people or like search on your own.
That's just for relationships, because I feel like hookups, like when I've been like sidetrack, it's just
it's easy peasy for them, but it's the relationship that's the hard thing to lock down.
Yeah, I mean, my problem with like trying to date through gay bars is one, I don't drink, but also it's just like no one really stands out in gay bars. It's like they all kind of
like
look
too
the
many
same.
options, so you just like it's dizzying. Yeah.
But also,
like when the menu's too big at a place, you're like, what do I even want?
I also feel like the way that gay men present themselves in gay spaces, such as a gay beach or a gay club, they're oftentimes wearing less clothing, and I feel like men are the most attractive, like the more dressed up they are.
Yeah.
And so I just don't. No one stands out to me in those settings, really.
Yeah.
Also,
you go to Hollywood Beach a lot?
No, but I went with Joseph on Father's Day.
It was wild. It was insane.
Was that your first time there?
Yeah. I was just
I ran into you that day afterwards.
We did. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was just like, listen, I've seen it all. I'm on a gay rugby team. I had a lot of confidence going to Hollywood Beach. I was not ready for what I saw.
Yeah, it's a lot. I was self-conscious about my body because like everybody was very, like chiseled.
Jacked, it's crazy up there. And just the density of people on the beach. I didn't know there were that many people. Like it felt like, I was like, where is everyone else? Like it feels like the entire gay community of Chicago is at this beach right now. Like,
Yeah, but it's wild because I feel like I know so many gay guys because, long story, I want to save this actually more so for when we do an episode, I think, on online dating. It seems like a good idea. We might do it. But I've been on over 500 first dates in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, like I've had weeks where I've gone on like 6 in a week.
That's wild.
Not recently. I mean, when I started this podcast, I was in a relationship. I said I had a boyfriend. We broke up a few months ago. I've been single. I haven't gone on many dates because I'm trying to pace myself. Also, it seems like Tinder's dead. Also,
I've
I feel
heard
like
reports of this.
Also, I feel like in order to think someone's special, I can't be seeing that many people. It needs to like I need to be excited about it, you know?
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, I haven't really been going on dates, but yeah, I've been on over 500, and like I'll go to gay things and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna see like so many people I know, and then there's just like literally hundreds after hundreds of people that I see before I see like a face I recognize, and it's like it is much bigger than you think. But like if you have any sort of criteria with gay dating, just the fact that you only have 1% or 2% of the population you can date, it gets whittled down so fast. Like for me, say if I was just trying to date like a gay Catholic man, that gets cut down so hard.
Yeah, no.
I haven't actually even been able to have that as like a filter.
Yeah, that's like a nice to have, not a need to have.
Yeah. I mean, at times I feel like it's almost a need to have.
Good self sorts for other good traits too.
Yeah. It's like gay guys they get out of control quickly. No, I've had like gay friends where like I'm a little bit older than them, and I'll be able to say like, oh yeah, don't do this, don't do that. Like it's going to get out of hand. And then pretty soon, like after a few years, they're like, yeah, I don't think I can ever be monogamous.
I've actually seen that. There was a guy who actually like rushed our fraternity. He was like a really cool gay guy, but like it became clear he like wouldn't be able to make time for the fraternity because of how much time he was spending at like Steamworks and like just on the train to Boys Town. The second he had any free time, his grades started suffering, like everything. It was just like he was like from a small town, and this was like his first big city experience. And it's like you should have taken a gap year. You should have like gotten it out of your system.
Literally a gap year, a gap year maybe.
I was thinking it, but I didn't want to say it.
I think gay guys start to like date a lot or have sex a lot or decide they just want to have sex so much that they don't want a relationship, because when gay guys meet each other, because we don't get to meet organically and it's not romantic and we don't get time to catch feelings and then fall in love, it's so fast. It's like it's literally like 0 to 60, and there's no time for anything other than that.
Sad about that. There's no like, oh, will they or won't they? Like, I always think there's a joy in like deniable dates. I've always heard that. Like when you meet a girl and you're like, oh, exchange numbers because we have like some very innocuous thing in common. But then like that stage of like, is there interest? It's so nice. I always think that's kind of sad and missing from dating app meetings. Like there's a confidence like, oh, we both think each other are hot. We're both like attracted to each other. Yeah. But it's kind of fun to figure that out, I would say. And it feels like with gay guys, there's just no moment of that. It's just right into it.
Yeah, like what we were talking about earlier, it seems like straight people really like the chase. Like the chase of a relationship, especially in the beginning. And gay men are just more like down to brass tacks. Like, let's just get down to it.
What like straight people love the chase so much that like I think that classic thing is, a middle-aged couple will be like, let's spice things up. Let's role play. And then I'll go to a bar all dressed up and like you'll approach me there. So like we love the chase so much, even when the chase is complete and people are married. Like, all right, let's reconstitute the chase here so we can try and catch that again.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good example from a TV show of like how gay guys are too intense is from the first season of The White Lotus. It's when Armand finds out that the dad who's married to the tech mogul Mark is like a little bit curious because Mark had found out that his dad is gay. Or was gay, died in the AIDS crisis, but he tells Armand while he's drunk, he's like, there must be a reason that gay guys like bottoming. I bet it feels good. And then Armand gets like too excited, and then it's immediately like, yeah, let's try it like right now. And then the whole rest of the show, every time he sees the dad, he makes the dad like feel uncomfortable, and it's borderline predatory. But like that's what it's like though. It's like that's how gay guys act. And for anyone who's curious, particularly, like they're used, like straight men, they're used to like doing the pursuing. So then if like a gay man who's like full force is pursuing them, it's like too much. They like, it's never going to happen.
I've reported on that. Like I was at a bar in Madison after a rugby championship. So it was a gay bar, of course. And there's a guy, just random guy at the bar. Like I was telling a story and the guy like latched on to the last word I said. He was like, oh yeah, that. And he was just like got in my space, but like in a flirty way, not in a confrontational way. But it was so weird to be on the receiving end of that, of a guy coming on too strong. And luckily like my team like closed ranks around me like, no, he's straight, don't waste your time. But this guy was like barreling towards me with sexual energy, and then they like kind of matadored him like with a cave. And I was so grateful for the team for that. But I was like a deer in the headlights when that happened. I felt like a girl.
I mean, It's impressive that he was like flirting at least. I just don't feel like gay guys flirt even. There's this meme about it's like a picture and it says like this is how gay guys flirt with each other, and it's just like this woman looking stoic and like staring down the camera. And I feel like that's what I actually do when I find a guy attractive. I just start looking at them. I'm not smiling. And like I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that.
You know it as you say it, so you don't even need to say anything.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah. This has been a long episode already. I have other things I kind of wanted to say, but I'm okay with like starting to wrap it up because I think that like what's important and what I wanted to communicate with this episode is just that like this is what is hard about being gay. It's not necessarily being discriminated against. It's not that people think I'm feminine or they think I'm weak. It's not that like I am in danger of being hurt. It's just that like this dating experience is so alienating. It's like you can't operate in the world catching feelings and falling in love, and you can only like date members of the same sex in like very like constructed ways. And gay bars are a bit more open, but that's still constructed. It's like it's forced. It's not organic, and everyone there is also looking around the room in this way that's like very distant, and they're not respecting the people around them. And it's just like this is always going to be present in the gay experience. It's like even if everything becomes ideal for gay men, it's like
that'll always be just the nature of things.
Yeah, this can't change, and it's like always going to be hard. Yeah.
I want to say that I find your pickiness to be very admirable. I think that's a good trait to have.
I'm picky if I've been on 500 first dates though.
Well, like that shows you're not picky with first dates. That shows the right amount. It shows a good openness. To trying things, and then also a high standard for like anything taking the next step. As well.
I've been rejected too, though, quite a bit. Yeah, I'm not that warm. I need to be warmer, I think.
Yeah.
I
don't know. It's always interesting, like getting a rejection. I think I don't know, on dating app dates, it's always like a very polite, like just not my vibe or something. And like, I hate when you know it from the start and you kind of have to go through the motions, like of the rest of it. But yeah, as they say, dating apps are a hellscape for straight people. You know.
I've never been on them. I've never used dating apps.
That's good. That's healthier. Yeah, I'm not happy that I was on dating apps at 13 years old.
Yeah.
I'm very off of them now, and like it's like a great peace has come over me. I would say, feels good, man.
But I was also when I was single last, I was in college, so I feel like it's super easy to meet.
Oh yeah, of course, you're just throwing people.
So you don't really need dating apps.
But yeah, thank you for this exploration. I got my big point out of the way. Do you have any concluding thoughts on male desire in general?
No, just a kind of general male desire apologism is what I'd say.
Sorry, ladies.
Yeah, sorry everyone, but we're men, we straight men, we're working on a new type of male desire that's not going to be problematic like the last one. We're really like, this is going to be great when we debut this product. But the product.
Yeah,
launch.
I mean, I think that like desire is one place where gay men do not pale in comparison to straight men. I think they're just as dedicated to like getting like a satisfying romantic or sexual life. And I find myself to be like overall not that emotional of a person, but like when I want and when I feel lonely, when I feel desire, it is like one of the strongest emotions that I feel.
Yeah.
I always say embarrassment is one of the strongest emotions that I feel. But I never felt as angry as I have felt embarrassed. But no, I think I would like, I've gotten to the point now where I would like self-describe myself as a romantic. I've done some very like grand romantic gestures and things. I'm very much more doing that in action. I really believe in that. But I've heard that's like it's a thing that people don't expect about me. I think I give a very like structured, rational kind of vibe, but it's like, no, like, love and romance is so important. Like it requires you to be irrational, you know, in order to really pull it off.
Yeah, that's the one thing about like falling in love that I did not expect is like it's actually like a terrifying emotion. Like when you fall in love because you're really vulnerable and you basically like handed this other person like a loaded gun. To point at you and trust them not to shoot you.
Love as though you can't be hurt. Like people say that, which is very easy to say and very difficult to do.
But I think that's good advice.
Yeah, no, it's like you got to. And I always think of that line from Louis C.K.'s show, where it's like he's experiencing this terrible heartbreak, and his like counselor is just saying like, "This is the good part. Like to care that much about someone to hurt this badly. Like this is the closest you get to like touching the veil of the human experience."
Definitely. I think overall with this next film that I've been writing, I'm really just kind of fed up with my fellow men and the mindset that all these men have. It's not even like harmful. I mean, it is harmful, but it's also just like boring. Like I really want straight men to just like evolve at this point. There's something new.
We're just like still women above us in spaceships as we're all just like killing each other with clubs.
Yeah.
It feels like that sometimes.
Yeah,
no, exactly.
But yeah, I think men just need to evolve, and I think we need to be okay with being uncomfortable and really ask ourselves hard questions and be vulnerable. And yeah, so
yeah, I mean, I feel like we were vulnerable in this week's episode. Hopefully there is something that can come next, because I mean, we've talked about historical examples, we talked about the present. I wasn't approaching this thinking anything would change, at least for gay guys, but I mean, maybe they could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. Bye.